And I'm happy to say CNET ready. Excellent. All right. Good evening and welcome. We will call to order this Thursday, September 1st, 2022 regular meeting of the College Township Council to order. I invite you to join council in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. At this point in the meeting, we will open the floor for public open discussion on anything that is not on this evening's agenda. Looking in the room first, does anyone have anything to discuss with council that is not on this evening's agenda? Looking online, I think I saw Sue Smith. Did I see?
No, she had for a minute there, but you do have one hand in the room too.
Oh, okay, great. I'm sorry. Yes, sir, please. You come to the lectern. And if you would, anytime anyone's speaking, we ask for the minutes and for the CNET audience, you identify yourself and your municipality.
I'm Wes Glebe. I'm from Ferguson Township, and just been recently appointed to the UAJA board. And I just wanted to introduce myself and say that as a board member, we represent all the ratepayers.
Excellent.
That includes College Township.
Excellent. And who did you replace for Ferguson?
Pardon?
Who did you replace for Ferguson?
Lisa Strickland.
Oh, okay, very good.
Yeah.
Very good. Well, welcome. Thank you. We look
Lisa
forward.
will probably be our new supervisor chairperson.
Understood.
Thank you.
Well, we look forward to working with you. Hopefully you've gotten to know our two representatives.
No, I haven't met them yet.
Oh, they'll make sure that you know them.
Okay. Thank you.
One of them is still the chair, correct?
Yes,
Yes.
that is correct.
So thank you. Thank you for introducing yourself to us. We appreciate it. Sue Smith.
Zoom is muted.
Again?
How are we now? Sue Smith.
That's great.
Sue,
I can hear you now.
Oh, okay, great. Thank you.
Am I on?
Yes, you are.
Okay. Sue Smith on Dale Street. I'm not speaking for anybody else but myself. I'm a regular reader of the classified ads, and there was one today that was registration of a fictitious name, Static X Firearm Training, and 130 Shrek Alley in Lamont. Steve Ecker is the owner. And I wondered if you know anything about that. And I'm all for people knowing what they're doing with their guns, but I'm not in favor of a lot of shooting in Lamont. So I just wanted to know if you've read that as well.
Yeah, Sue, we have no information. There's been no use permit applications of any kind. At this point, we'll follow up, but we have no knowledge of what that might be specifically.
Okay. Well, when you do, I'd be interested in knowing about it. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Anyone else have anything to discuss with council that is not on this evening's agenda? Seeing nor hearing none, we'll move on to asking if any of council has any potential new agenda items for this evening. Seeing nor hearing none, we're going to move on to plans. Before I do that, I just want to give a shout out to our member Carla Stilson, who is remote, is a little under the weather, but she's fighting through. We appreciate you taking the time to still be with us, Carla. Thank you. Plans, P1, Justin P. and Jacqueline Ondyke, preliminary final subdivision plan, tax parcel 190472E, 817 Struble Road, State College. Lindsay, are you leading this?
Yes, I am. Thank you. This proposal is to subdivide the existing 8.56 acre lot into 2 acres, 2 lots, one being 2.14 acres, the other being 6.29 acres. There's also 0.13 acres in there that is part of a right-of-way, as you will see. This property is located off the private portion of Struble Road. Okay, next. So this is the location. If you can see the green highlighted area, the parcel there. We zoomed out a little bit so you could kind of get a better context of where this is. You can see that Dale Street in Lamont at the bottom of the page, and then Mount Nittany Terrace Lane there. It's kind of sits there in between those two. The proposed use is residential and the existing use is residential. So here's the plan. Just wanted to kind of go through the PowerPoint real quick and give you a brief history. So Mike, if you can go to the next slide. Oh, is there more before that? Before that? Huh. Okay. All right. Well, just to give you an idea, the Planning Commission heard this presentation at their meeting on the 18th, at which time they recommended that council approve the plan along with the 2 requested waivers. So the ONDIC plan has 2 waivers. One is for sidewalks. As you know, we're in the process of updating the pedestrian facilities master plan. So when we see requests for waivers for sidewalks, we apply what we have in plan, and we did test the matrix that we have. It's not adopted yet, but we still use that. To put in a sidewalk here, it scored a 1, and that means that if the PED plan were adopted and we were implementing that plan, the 1 score would mean that this would be eligible to receive a full waiver. There's second waiver request from the subdivision and land development ordinance, and that is adding an additional driveway to an existing driveway off a private street. Currently, our regulations allow for up to 3 unless you can meet 3 conditions. One is the lot is at least 2 acres, the lots are residential, and the lots each contain a single-family home. So the Planning Commission recommended that the council both approve both of those waivers. Other Planning Commission concerns that evening were fire. Although our fire director didn't have any formal comments, the house is going to have a sprinkler system inside. Mr. Henry is here. He's been working on the plan with us, and if you have any further questions for him, he is here for you.
Very good. Mr. Henry, do you?
Henry, surveyor working on this, and if you have any questions for me on this plan, yeah, go ahead.
Great. You don't have anything to add to Lindsay's presentation at this
She
time?
covered that fairly well.
Okay, very good.
Very well, yeah.
Questions from council for staff or Mr. Henry? Mike, I'm going to rely on you for Carla.
Real quick
Paul,
question.
please.
Right at the beginning of this lot is where it shifts from public to private road. Is that correct? Are there other lots that are developed off of past that portion? I was just having trouble reading the
Yeah, the
plan.
terminus of the Struble Road, the public portion of Struble Road is right at where that lot enters Struble Road.
Where the red line ends right there,
And then
correct?
there's,
The bold
on
red.
the
Bold
northeast
red.
side of Struble Road, there's 3 other lots that enter there too. Then on our side, right now, there's only the 8-acre lot, or my client's lot, and then there'll be 2 lots
Okay,
once this is approved.
so that'll be 4 and 5, or that'll be?
Correct.
Okay, okay.
And the idea is that that road would remain private, right?
Correct.
Yeah,
But there will be an installation of a cul-de-sac, right? Isn't that what I saw in the plan?
There's a right-of-way reserved for some future cul-de-sac if you would be able to get all the landowners to agree to actually putting in a cul-de-sac.
Okay.
So it's for future,
yeah, but they're responsible for the maintenance and upgrades of all that.
yes.
Correct.
Yeah, at this time, it's gonna be a private road that my client will own just for his lot and the lot he's subdividing off. But he will offer it at any time to the township, like Don said, if other owners in there want to agree to do a cul-de-sac. We've made a circle there for our subdivision, half a cul-de-sac.
Eric?
No, go ahead. I may have another one in a moment.
Well, related to Paul's question, thanks, Lindsay, for vetting this through the, what are we calling it, the pedestrian?
Matrix.
Because that's important. I think we at least look at that context. But regarding the waiver, which I generally makes sense for, access for, what would that be, a fourth access? One beyond the map?
Well, right now there's 4, and this would be the 5th. And the way the waiver for the additional lots is written is you can go up to 6. We just did this off of Mount Nittany Terrace development, but you can go up to 6 provided they are all 2 acres or greater in size, which these lots are.
Okay. As always, I always want to vet options so that down the road, when we get future requests like this, we have a rationale, we don't set bad precedent. Why then, if that's the case, when you say up to 6, do they still need a waiver? Or just 6?
Well, the way our ordinance is written, anything over 3, the 4th, 5th, and 6th lots, technically that you're getting a waiver for those.
Okay. But that's no different than somebody coming in and asking for a waiver, even if you didn't have that language, right?
Pretty much, yes.
It's built into the ordinance, sort of.
Yeah,
but it's
it-
still called a waiver.
Yeah, I would think we should change the term from waiver to.
Okay, thank you.
It doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
Just so I understand, if that line, if the line that ends the public road was 15 feet further, this would be a non-issue.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Well, it would
Pretty
be more
much,
like
yeah.
60 feet farther, it would be
16
not an
feet.
issue.
Is, just out of curiosity, is the private sector built to the same spec as the public road?
The paving section may or may not be. It is paved. There is a big apron there for vehicles to turn around, but no, it
At the
doesn't
end of the
mean.
public?
Yeah, beyond the public,
Okay.
actually beyond the public, but it does not quite meet our.
All right, again, I support the waiver, I'm just vetting,
Yeah.
making sure we step through the potential options so that we can say that we did that before we granted the waiver. So the other one would be obviously if the adjacent property provided us 10 or 12-foot easement, you could connect on the public road as opposed to the private, and you wouldn't need a waiver. Correct? Not suggesting that you
Yeah.
go through that, but.
Well, if we could get enough an easement there, then yeah, you would not need a waiver.
That's all I had. I support the concept of the waiver
Understood.
given the circumstances.
Paul, did you have
I
something
found
else?
what I was looking for in the
Okay,
packet.
great.
Thank you.
Carla, anything from you on the plan?
No, nothing additional, thank you.
Okay, very good, thank you. So if there is no concern and someone is comfortable, staff has provided a conditional motion, and if someone is willing to make.
Sure. Mr. Chair, I move to approve the preliminary/final 2-lot subdivision of lands of Justin P. Ondick and Jacqueline B. Ondick, plan dated July 12th, 2022, and last revised August 23rd, 2022, subject to the following conditions. 1, within 90 days from the date of approval by council, all conditions must be satisfied, signatures must be obtained, and the plan must be recorded with the Center County Recorder of Deeds office. Failure to meet the 90-day recordation time requirement will render the plan null and void. 2, pay all outstanding review fees. 3, address to the satisfaction of the township engineer any outstanding plan review comments from staff. 4, comply with College Township Code Section 180-12. 5, post surety as approved by the township engineer prior to recordation. 6, recommend the approval of all sidewalk waiver requests as noted in the plan. 7, recommend the approval of the driveway waiver request as prepared by Henry Surveys. Number 8, all conditions must be accepted in writing within 7 days from the date of the conditional approval letter from the township engineer.
I have a motion.
Second.
I have a second. Any further discussion? Anyone in the audience, online or in person, have anything to speak to this plan? Seeing nor hearing none, call the question. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say no. Motion carries. Hey,
Thank you then.
thank you. One point, we have a robust online audience. For the folks inside, it's easy to go back and forth, but when you get that online, it can really stumble and everything. So please take a breath after a person has spoke before you start speaking. It'll help the folks online a lot. So, continuing on in the agenda, P2, Harold Altman Inc. subdivision, preliminary final subdivision plan, tax parcel 1911-52, northeast corner of intersection of Berry Street and Mount Nittany Road, Lamont. Lindsay.
Thank you. Tonight, Mr. Toretti is here representing the Altmans, but I just want to go through a brief presentation for you. This is the Harold Altman Incorporated subdivision. This proposal divides one lot into 2 residential lots. Thanks, Mike. This is located at the corner of Mount Nittany Road and Berry Street in the village of Lamont. It is in the village zoning district, and it is the Blue Church, if everyone is familiar with the Blue Church in Lamont. The existing use is residential. The church has been used as storage and as an art studio. The proposed use is single-family residential. Next slide, please. Here's a better view. This is from Berry Street, and you're looking up to Mount Nittany Road there by the church. Next slide. Just another view of Mount Nittany Road and the church. And next slide. And just another view. This plan also requests a waiver for sidewalks, and this isn't the first time a waiver request for sidewalks in a situation like this in Lamont has been raised or requested in the past few months. We've had similar proposals as well. So the 2 residential lots, the residential lot currently is about 20,000 acres, or 20,000 square feet. Yeah, so I'm just making sure you're paying attention. The home lot is proposed to be subdivided into a 10,726 square foot lot, and the church lot, 9,819. A variance for this was granted back in July of 2022. That was a 30-foot reduction in the width at the setback line, and a variance was also granted for a 4-foot reduction in the 10-foot setback in order to get these on the plan and subdivided to be consistent with our zoning code. There's also a note on the plan that indicates this, one of the properties is historically significant. And as you recall, we have a conditional use now for historically significant properties. And if they do want to either preserve, rehabilitate, restore, or reconstruct the church, they will have to come through and go through the conditional use process. So that is a note there on the plan. There is a waiver request. Mr. Toretti submitted a detailed request within your packet. We can go through that in more detail if you like. But the waiver is for relief to install sidewalks on both Berry Street and on Mount Nittany Road. The Planning Commission recommended council approve the waiver. The sidewalk scores a 7 on the matrix, so that's just right on the cusp. And if you do have a 7, then that means you would still be, you would be eligible to get a waiver. And the Planning Commission's major discussion about this was the dangers of backing out onto Mount Nittany Road from the parking area that's proposed along Mount Nittany Road. But after that discussion, they didn't, we don't really have any ordinances in place that that disallows you from backing out onto a road, so they didn't make any recommendation to change that. And one thing to note, that after the Planning Commission met, we did meet with Ms. Beers Altman, and we discussed the fact that the church is filled currently with a bunch of storage and art and materials, and they plan to take all of that out before selling the home and converting it back to a single-family home. So we feel that it would be beneficial to add a note to the plan saying that in the future, when the property sells, you can have, oh no, that's not how it would go. How did I say? So staff now proposes we add a note to the plan indicating that once the plan is recorded, they have 12 months to clean out the church and convert it back to a single-family home, so then it'll be a consistent use with our zoning ordinance. So there's also an easement on here. If you can see in the light gray, that document will also be a part of the plan when it is finally recorded. So Mark Treddy is here if you have any more detailed questions for him, but that's all I have for you.
Very good. Mr. Treddy, do you have anything to add to what Lindsay has shared with us already?
No, I mean, I think Lindsay gave a pretty detailed and good presentation there, so.
Very good. Questions for staff or the design professional?
Chair, real quick.
Yes.
Any problem with the note on the plan?
No, I wasn't there for the meeting, but that part was discussed, and I know that was the term of discussion was about converting that. And so 12 months after the plan's recorded, it has to be converted, which really has to be converted.
Sure.
Just, before you sell it, so yeah.
Right.
Okay, as long as that's acceptable.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yep. Okay, any questions for staff or the design professional?
Yeah, I go.
Please.
Yeah, I guess maybe I missed this when I reviewed it. You were talking about a driveway in the rear of the lot?
Yeah, Mike, can
Can
you
you
go to
point
the
that
next
out?
slide? So,
So that's the old alleyway there.
yeah, up
Okay,
there.
That existing alleyway.
Yep,
And the
and
corner
then-
actually comes up above that, right? Yep.
Right, so where the weeds are, there is the proposed driveways for
Okay.
2 spots. 3 are required by our ordinance. So they would be backing out onto Mount Nittany Road here.
Yeah, on the alleyway, the grade drops significantly off the alley down into that area where we're more at grade, where we're pulling in here. I mean, it's like probably about a 5-6 foot drop off just right into that area off the alley. So it makes sense to put it there in that aspect of it. So we did put it off of Mount Nittany, and there are, like, basically right in that area, there's basically 4 houses, a couple right across the street in that to do the same thing, that have driveways that pull back out onto Mount Nittany Road.
Do you have sheet 3? Sheet 3 of the plan? That kind of shows it pretty well. Anything else, Dustin?
Yeah, I just have one more
Go ahead.
question.
Want to put it back? Okay.
If you want to, did you want to look at that yet or not? If you could pull up a picture of the corner of Mount Nittany Road and Berry, which shows that intersection the best there, to show, there's some I just want to speak to. And I have no issues with the sidewalk waiver, but I do want to talk to this if we can get the picture up. That when we get the picture up, this area at that intersection of Berry, if we have an actual photo, do we have, I think we have a photo, right, in the packet? Yeah,
Let me get there.
right here, Berry, and
And the sidewalk waiver.
so we can see it right here. We can see it in that photo, and if you, I think there's one that's down the hill a little further, right there, that's fine, that's perfect. So now go back to the one you just had, yeah. So where the sign is, and you see the intersection, right? So this is a school bus stop area, So I do appreciate and I do agree with the sidewalk waiver. However, I wonder, and if this is totally out of bounds, if we could not just have an area that's a little more designated for that bus stop area. Now, I do understand that bus stops change, but, or, at least, something in note that, that this doesn't interfere with that bus stop area. Now, a lot of times the kids will stand on the other side of the road too, but parents will tend to drive off, and you probably see this where they'll kind of park there and drop their kids off. So it's just something to note, and because of that, I actually appreciated your comment on the sidewalks may actually speed traffic up on the road, which was something to consider about it. Yeah, so just to note that is a school bus stop area, and I think that's been there forever.
Okay. Other questions, comments? Yes, Eric?
Yeah, like Dustin, I support the draft motion, including the sidewalk waiver, but a couple of questions, just out of curiosity. I'm guessing that the planning commission's angst over the parking lot access had it more to do with the speed with which people come down Mount Nittany than site clearance? Would that be accurate?
Yes, correct.
Okay, because I go through there a lot, and, you stop at the very stop sign, and people are just down Mount Nittany. It's downhill, it's natural tendency. I wonder what Dustin said, we as a township could contact the school district and request that stop be moved. They determine the stop, but I've had experience with them in requesting them to revisit that and reevaluate a stop location based on, a lot of it is just historical. They pick up there, they pick up there. So if that's a concern, I think we have, we have an option there. And then lastly, it sounds like the note is a non-issue, right? The note on the plan is going to be a non-issue?
Yeah, I wasn't there for the discussion, but that's pretty much what you discussed.
Yes.
Jesse, yeah, okay.
Has to be clear, you're going to be cleared out before you sell it? Because
Oh, yeah, it has to be converted to a single-family, at least get code to say it meets a single-family dwelling requirement. Because for zoning, the zoning of it and the setbacks are all, and even for the variance, is all based upon it being a single-family dwelling. Because the setbacks are different for any other uses for it.
So given that, does staff still feel that the note is important on the plan? And how would we enforce it 12 months after the fact if it wasn't cleaned out?
I would have the enforcement abilities
Okay.
through our code.
So the subdivision would still apply and all of that, it would just be a matter of you going out and making sure they get it done?
Yeah, the problem right now, the church building was being used as an art studio and art storage area. It was okay when it was part of that individual property because it was an accessory to an allowable use. When we draw that property line, that building can no longer be a storage building, and that's why we felt give a reasonable time frame to either empty the building so it's just an empty building, or begin the process to convert. And
Okay.
give them a reasonable amount of time to make progress to get to that point.
And you're comfortable with that falling as an enforcement issue, should it?
Yes.
Okay, that's all I got.
And what is the proof of conversion? What?
Well, if they were to be getting permits and start work is one thing. We've worked well with Ms. Beers Altman. I would have no hesitancy to call and say, I want to see, is it empty? We have no permits, is it empty yet?
Okay.
But based on our conversations, they have every intention to get moving on this
Sure.
in a timely fashion.
And if the house gets sold, that note is recorded there on the plan, so that will always remain a single-family home then.
Understood.
Okay.
Carla, I understand you have your hand up.
Yeah, thank you. I just, my ears were perked by what Dustin said when I was reviewing this plan and thinking about the sidewalk waiver in particular. I do wonder if corners are not, should not be a priority for this very specific reason, and then Dustin brought up the bus stop issue. So I guess I just wanted to see if I could put a little bit more underneath that topic, before it got dropped completely. That's it.
To confirm about discussion with the school district about potential relocation of the bus stop, is that what you're saying?
No, not at all.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm glad I clarified.
Thank you, sorry. It's hard to like talk to yourself. No, to talk about potentially putting a corner landing there and waiving the sidewalk on each side, but not waiving something at the corner. Again, for pedestrian safety, when crossing streets, because cars do come around turns, and I've walked on many roads without sidewalks, and that's not my concern. But corners can be the hairy spot in that. So, and then with the addition that is a bus stop, it kind of doubled my thinking about it. So I'm just stating this in an effort to maybe put some more underneath that conversation if the rest of council wants to have it.
Okay. So create a safe haven at that quarter like a landing of some sorts.
Correct.
Okay, very good. Paul, did you have any thoughts on that?
Just a clarifying question, the bus comes up Mount Nittany and then turns left on Hensey, or?
I think
past
they
that?
change,
mean,
I don't know
I'm
what
not
the
sure
route
which way
is.
it goes.
So I take my kids to school now, or we drive them to school in the wake of COVID. But I do know there's some other kids that have that bus stop there. That is the bus stop. So that is as far as they go up Mount Nittany Road. They do not go any further.
Okay.
So everybody that is up Mount Nittany Road, Thompson,
Comes
Hensey,
down.
comes down. And they can either get picked up, I think further out and Hensey and Thompson, but, or either or, but they don't go up any further Mount Nittany. I do know that for a fact because we tried to get it pushed further and they wouldn't do it.
Well, the reason I ask is you could go down to Dale and then come along Berry, so then you wouldn't be going up that, and you would sort of
But
be
you're saying
shielded
the
from that
direction that
traffic.
the bus
One at a time,
comes?
one at a time,
Is
guys.
that what you're saying, the direction of the bus comes?
Yeah,
I don't know how it comes,
Okay.
it might be different because of the Pike Street. But usually they used to come out Berry, and that was for the elementary students, and towards Dale Street.
I was just curious. I think asking the school district what, in their opinion, is the safest way to go, given the volume and speed of the traffic on Mount Nittany Road. I mean, it's certainly a concern for this property, but it's clearly also a concern for school-age kids and families. So that was my only comment.
Okay, very good.
Question?
Mr. Manager, did you?
Well, the discussion with respect to the corner landing, or safe area, is that something, Mark, I mean, I know that we're basically, it appears as if council's willing to accept the waiver recommendations on the sidewalks.
Yeah.
Is there any potential for creating some type of a concrete sidewalk-like landing area at the corner?
Possibly, it depends like which way the bus is going. Is it even on our side for the stop? I don't know. I think if it is, we could, the grades are tight there, but you could carve something in if you had to. It's just, I don't put something there that if the kids are on the other side of the road stopping, that part I don't know on it. So, I mean, if it's something where talking to the school district and they say that's always going to be a stop there, and it is, I'm not sure if they're going down it, where it's functional on there. I mean, I think putting a pad in there, if you pull up the photo again, I think the grades are, you have to cut it back in the grade a little
Yeah.
bit, but I don't think a pad would be too much of a, you have to just work something in. If it's along here, there's a little retaining wall along this end, so it'd be somewhere along here, but that grade does go up, but just cut something in. I'm not sure how big of a pad you'd be looking at on there. I'm not sure how many kids are there, but that's, it could be feasible if the bus stops there. Or do you know, does it come out this street or?
That was my question.
Yeah, I don't know, I don't know where it goes, so, or to come up this way,
Yeah, I think I can add some clarification
yeah.
to Mr. Toretti. So as we're facing the picture now,
Yeah.
right, so I do know, and I can't speak to it for this year, but
Yeah.
last year, the bus would come out from Berry Street heading directly the way we're looking, down Berry, towards that car that's parked. And so generally when, yeah. So generally when the bus stops in the middle of the intersection
Yeah.
to make sure that nothing comes through.
Yeah,
Now the kids would stand, to your point,
Yeah.
because of the grade there,
There'd
the
be-
kids would stand on the other side of the road.
yeah,
Yeah.
so that's what it's like,
Right.
you know, that's where they'd be standing then, so. Because there's a door open for the bus on the other side of the road also, so.
But there's nothing to say if we put a safe haven landing spot there that they wouldn't go. That-
Yeah, and what kind of sparked me when Carla brought it up, and that's kind of where my head was going a little bit, just to kind of plant the seed. They would also, I mean, if you put that there, that would keep people from cutting that corner off, right? That's, you know, it's not really safe for the kids to stand there because somebody could come down the road because of the grade,
Yeah,
and it cut right into that corner, you know, if a pedestrian was standing there.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, you could cut something in here a little bit, you know, it does slope up, but, you know, it's not to be real big, but it's, you know, it's possible to put something there for, you know, maybe 4 feet in and, you know, 8 feet long or something like that. I don't know, just, you know, that area.
If I might though, they're not going up that way.
Yeah,
That was my
that's
question.
right.
They're not
They're
going
coming
up.
through.
So
They're coming
if
through.
they're not going up to Hensey, that doesn't make any sense. It would have to be
Yeah.
on the Berry
Yeah,
edge
that'd be on the
of
Berry
the
side.
property.
But, you know, if I may, and I just wanted to bring it up as planting the seed, I wanted to plant the seed for future considerations. We have a pedestrian facilities master plan. We're talking about not on Struble Road, which is up in the woods. We're talking about in the village here. So, you know, in the future, you know, do we want sidewalks on all these roads? I mean, that's the question, right? And, you know, and consideration, I think, has to be taken into account, you know, what side of the road it belongs on. I mean, the steps come right out to that road, it's a small lot as it
Yeah.
is, you start eating it up with sidewalks on that side, it's very difficult. So, I was just trying to, you know, plant a seed for future discussions on, you know, where we need to, because we need to consider that when we review these plans, what the future looks like in Lamont, right, as we map it out.
Yeah. Have you ever, I mean, just walk around a lot of the streets. Unfortunately, like, because they've been on the hillside, you go up, not Hensey, I think the next street up there. I mean, you look at it and, you know, you have the road that is like a 2-to-1 slope up. And like, it's just a lot of areas, you know, it's an area that whenever it was built out, it was, you know, they weren't planned, and it's just very hard to get them in a lot of areas on here. I mean, just walking around and walking through Lamont, that's kind of the thing. And as you walk around at night, you see a lot of people walking on the streets and around. And in some ways, like for me, it's nicer, it's easier to talk to people coming the other direction. Basically, just walk out in the middle of the road and talk to them, and they talk to you. But yeah, I mean, pad-wise, like says, if it makes sense, bus traffic-wise, you know, I wouldn't have a problem. If it doesn't make sense, I don't know, you know, what the point of it is.
And is this a you know, potential discussion as part of our pedestrian walkable College Township overall? Because this isn't a unique situation in the village.
Sure, I think that's fair. You know, when you're thinking about that pedestrian facilities master plan, you're looking holistically and taking into account kids getting on the buses and those kind of things. I think that's an important thing to think about. You know, much like a CATA bus stop, it's
Yes.
a similar situation. You know, getting them from point A to point B safely and what facilities you need in between to accommodate that. So I think as part of that discussion, it absolutely has merit.
Okay.
And I don't know, like with school district wise, this is as far as they come up. I'm not sure how many kids look further up. But like just going up the street further, right up to the next lots, it's paved, it's basically paved drainage ditches on both sides of the streets, is what it is, but it's a place where if you have to get off the road, stand off the road, you're off the road, but that loops back down around, and comes around. It'd be a loop for the school district if they wanted to turn left and go up around and through, but I think that's more from the school district, what they think they need to serve and how they serve it. If it makes sense, school bus stop.
What did you do?
This is why nobody wants to sit next to you.
Or Mark.
So if it makes sense, school bus stop wise, we try to put a pad in there. If it doesn't, I prefer not to.
Okay. So we're gonna, Lindsay, did you have something?
Keep in mind, the planning commission's gonna see the PED plan again, coming up next Tuesday. And if those landings or corners or something that you want us to really consider again, we can do that. It's not too late.
I mean, to your suggestion, I think we need to have that as a factor in an overlay of the school bus stops, right? In our pedestrian facilities master plan.
Right, but I don't know if
This
we should
wouldn't
hold
pertain
on
to
this
this right now.
individual, but it definitely brought up a subject that could be looked at
Great.
as part of our master planning. So with that said, staff has provided us a conditional motion if anyone is comfortable making such motion.
With the extra note.
With the extra note, number 8, which I have as, once recorded, within 12 months, converted to single-family dwelling.
Right. That works.
Once recorded.
Mr. Chair, I moved, approve the Harold Altman Incorporated subdivision preliminary final land development, subdivision plan dated July 18th, 2022, and last revised August 5th, 2022, subject to the following 8 conditions. 1, within 90 days from the date of approval by council, all conditions must be satisfied, signatures must be obtained, and the plan must be recorded with the Center County Recorder of Deeds office. Failure to meet the 90-day recordation time requirement will render the plan null and void. Number 2, pay all outstanding review fees. Number 3, address to the satisfaction of the township engineer any outstanding plan review comments from staff. Number 4, fully comply with College Township Code 180-12. 5, post surety as approved by the township engineer prior to recordation. 6, recommend approval of the sidewalk waiver request prepared by Pantera Engineering Incorporated. Number 7, all conditions must be accepted in writing within 7 days from the date of conditional approval letter from the date of the conditional approval letter from the township engineer. And number 8, what Rich said.
A second.
Once again, number 8, once recorded within 12 months, converted to single-family dwelling. We have a motion, we have a second. Any further discussion? Being an action item, anybody in the public wish to speak to this plan? Seeing nor hearing none, call the question. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say no. Motion carries.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir. If it's okay with council, I'm going to do a little agenda shuffling. I'm going to move reports down to after old business. Any objections? Hearing or seeing none. Therefore, I'm going to move to the consent agenda. For the benefit of our audience and council and staff, I am not going to read absolutely every one of these in. I am allowed to do so by reference, and I will reference the printed council consent agenda dated September 1st, 2022 that is included in our agenda package. Does any member of council wish any of the items contained therein pulled for additional discussion before approving, potentially approving?
Just a question about the CTIDA.
Sure.
Resignation. Do we have we put out another call for potential?
We have not, and I thought we would discuss that as part of the report section.
Fair enough.
That's
Okay.
agreeable.
Yes. Okay, that's fine with me. Then none for me.
Okay, Eric? No, nothing, good, Dustin, good.
None.
Carla, good. The only one I would make, I do want to reference exactly what Paul just spoke of. Our longtime chair of the College Township Industrial Development Authority, Allison Kurtz, is resigning effective August 25th, 2022. We absolutely want to thank her for her service. I'm sure staff has proper recognition factored.
We'll take care of that.
Excellent. Okay, if nothing else, I'll accept a motion to approve the consent agenda by reference as included in our agenda package.
So moved.
We have a motion,
Second.
we have a second. Any further discussion? Call the question. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say no. Motion carries.
Are you hearing feedback?
Yeah, I think there was a request in the audience to turn up for the volume of the speakers, and so every time that we do that, there's going to be a little feedback. So either we need to take it down one more notch, but we may jeopardize the sound in the room. But that's why we're getting that.
Fair enough.
Okay, very good. Okay, as indicated, we've shuffled the agenda slightly. Old business, OB1, review a draft FAQ for proposed Nittany Casino. Mr. Bloom.
Sure, so this item I think will probably be a tag team between Adam and I, but I will go ahead and kick it off. As you'll recall, at your meeting in August 4th, or earlier this year, council had a discussion in regards to providing some additional information relevant to the proposed casino at the Nittany Mall. Before you tonight are two documents that staff has prepared as draft for your review. Those being a frequently asked questions document, as well as a timeline of significant events surrounding this proposed development. Just a note, and this is outlined again in the memo, throughout the correspondence that you've received to date, there have been a consistent two questions that have been asked throughout the course of all of that correspondence. Primarily, the main question was, does College Township Council still have the ability to opt out of being a host municipality for the casino? And the second question is, does Township Council have the latitude to deny or rescind their approval, conditional approval on the land development plan? In that regard, staff sought a legal opinion from our township solicitor, Louis Glantz, specific to those two questions. According to the solicitor's opinion, Title 53 of the Pennsylvania Consolidated Statutes clearly indicates that the township's right to opt out expired 60 days after the effective date of Act 63 of 2019. That act was signed into law on July 2nd, 2019, putting that expiration date somewhere near the end of August, about the 26th or 27th of August. Specific to the land development, the solicitor noted that to date, the applicant and developer has been acting in reliance upon the township's decisions that you have taken, that being the decision related to the opt-in, opt-out, as well as the conditional approval of the land development. As such, the developer has continued to allocate considerable resources towards the proposed casino project, which supports their position. In support of those findings, I included also Solicitor Glantz's legal opinion. So the action being requested of council tonight is a discussion, review and discussion of the attached documents, and then ultimately we're looking for you to provide comments and direction back to staff on those draft frequently asked questions, as well as the timeline of significant events.
Okay, so we have the two documents. Two documents are the timeline of significant events, which is an encapsulation of the road that got us here chronologically, and then a couple of the frequently asked questions. So on the timeline, please identify if there's any dates or significant events you think we're missing from the timeline. On the frequently asked questions, please provide anything additional you would like to see, any corrections you feel needs made to what is in the document, and any other comments that you might want to share with regard to this. And so the easiest for us is to go around the horn.
Yeah, Mr. Chair,
Yeah.
I just wanted to add for clarity, on the College Township website, there's already a timeline that is posted. This is an update to that timeline. So anything that has not been captured since the last update that's presently online would be captured here, but there's also some backfill of some significant dates as well that presently do not appear on what we have on the timeline that's presently posted on the web.
Right. Again, looking for council thoughts if there's any dates that we missed that are relevant to that and everything. So, starting around the horn, Eric's far right, so we will start with you, sir.
Yeah, going through what you provided, Adam, I don't have any comments on the timeline. I think it's, open to suggestions, but I didn't have, nothing jumped out at me. I did, however, in going through, trying to go through all the comments we received, I did have, and I took notes as I went through them. I did have, I think, total of 4 suggested additions to the FAQs to at least toss out here for council to consider thinking about adding. The first has to do with the second FAQ regarding opt-out. And I thought maybe the best thing to do is just to read from the comments that I made last year in front of the, at the public hearing on behalf of the township, to see if there's pieces of this that may be helpful to weave into that. And these comments I made, you were limited to 5 minutes, so I tried to make 4 points. The second point, why the township did not opt out in 2017, and I'm reading word for word from the transcript. Since we already had gaming establishments as an allowed use in the township, and, that's the and part was important, since the portion of the township's commercial zoning district which was the only place it would be allowed, was restricted to the area of the mall, the factors affecting our decision on an opt-out opportunity were very different than those playing into the decisions by many of the other municipalities around the state, including almost all in this area, meaning the center region. Without gaming as an allowed use in those municipalities with zoning, which is all the municipalities, they could have had to allow a casino anywhere within their municipal boundaries. So the opt-out provision carried a much different impact for them than it did in College Township. So looking at the 2006 action in the context of 2017, what we saw was an area of the township that was built to support dense retail commercial development. And the rest of this is covered, I think, pretty much already in the FAQ. But the point I wanted to make was the context of our decision to opt out was very different. The other municipalities had a lot more at risk if they had not opted out, as opposed to College, which already had any potential casino operation restricted to a very small area in the township where, at least on the surface, it looked like the infrastructure could support it and it would contribute it could contribute to the economic revitalization of the area. So in closing at that point, what I said was the township saw this as a property-specific opportunity for a property-specific challenge. So that was the first thing, and I don't know if, I just wanted to toss that out there to see if there was any pieces of that that anybody thought might be helpful to add into the FAQs, because I see a lot of, I've seen, not a lot, but I've seen some reference to that in the comments that I've read through. The second one, and this might have to be if there's support, this might have to be a new FAQ comment, and that has to do with just gambling in Pennsylvania in general. It's remarkable to me how many people I talk to don't realize that you can already gamble in Pennsylvania, online. It was quite remarkable, how many people that was news to. So I don't know if, for example, in addition to the lottery ticket machines that are everywhere, supermarkets, Walmart, gas stations, Rudders, there really isn't anything you can do in a casino from a gambling perspective that you can't already do online in Pennsylvania, in the state of Pennsylvania. Except maybe, have a meal or see a show or, those kinds of things. So for this one,
Folks, please.
I just wonder if it would be helpful to make a reference to folks for what is already available to residents as far as gambling goes, just for a bit of context. And, I don't know. I don't know if that'll help or not, but I'm just tossing that out there. With the point that a casino at the mall will not necessarily introduce gambling to Center County, because I see that a lot. I see that a lot in the comments, and I've heard that as feedback from people who didn't know you could do everything in a casino already online. But instead, provide additional, the brick and mortar casino would instead provide additional format, beyond for gambling, beyond what the online options are. One that really just involves a larger brick and mortar facility than, say, I don't know, Rudders or the gas stations or the Unimarts, that kind of stuff. So I don't know, I'm just tossing it out there again. These are things that, not necessarily the things that I saw come up the most, but things that I thought some additional information may be helpful, to focus comment. And then the third one was, it was really a two-parter, and that was the impacts. So that takes us to really what impacts to the township are different than when you add in a brick and mortar gambling option, as opposed to everything that's out there right now. And I've seen quite a few comments on why didn't anybody research this, do a study to assess the impact. We have the economic impact study on the website, which does address, traffic, infrastructure, talks to the chief of police, all of those kinds of things to assess that. That's required. So I'm wondering if it would be helpful to have a few sentences in there that then links to that, just to let people know that's available. They can read it and disagree with it, but it's obvious to me that so many folks don't even know it's there and haven't looked at it. So that would be the third one. And then the fourth one is, it also has to do with impacts. And, I see this a lot. And, crime, prostitution, all the things that are generally associated with, traditional casinos, going back to the 70s and the 80s. And it's probably important at this point to note that, that I live just over half a mile from this site. And if I was concerned that those were legitimate issues, enough to the point where it would affect me, I'd be the first guy in line. You know, I'd be head of the charge opposing, you know, this particular, this site for this particular use. But, you know, all the research we've done to date, including the trip we made to Greensburg, doesn't really bear a lot of that out. Not saying it's not possible, I'm just saying we're not seeing a lot of that in the research that we've done in comparable situations. So when I say comparable situations, I want to note, I think what we've learned is five significant differences from what we traditionally associate with brick and mortar casinos and gambling. And the first is the extensive vetting process that the owners and landlords have to clear just to apply for the license. This is different in Pennsylvania, and it's extensive. I mean, they go back, they look at your whole life. And then when you get to the employees, much of that is the same thing. And then if they're successful, what we found out is the oversight and regulatory environment these casinos operate in with virtually no recourse should they not be in compliance is very unique in the state of Pennsylvania. Of course, then again, the training and requirements the staff has to meet, particularly in regards to serving alcohol. You know, I left Greensburg thinking to myself, boy, wouldn't it be nice if the bars in State College had to comply the same way the casinos do when it comes to, you know, identifying people, making sure they're of age, not serving people who even remotely look inebriated. Wouldn't it be nice if that actually would apply universally to every bar and restaurant? Anyways, I digress. The fact that the gaming industry is required to commit significant resources to assist those who develop a gambling problem, I didn't know that until we went down there. I mean, significant resources. And the last thing that kind of stuck out to me is the fact that the state police are required to be on site on top of the extensive security that they're required to already have in place. So the point of all of this is that I wonder, having gone through all of these comments, if maybe some text in there, you know, we have the link to the economic impact study, and maybe a link to any information that might be out there, either from the gaming board or somewhere, that notes the requirements, you know, the ones I noted, and maybe there are more, particularly the extensive special conditions under which a Category 4 casino in the state of Pennsylvania must operate, obviously in comparison to casinos in other states or larger casinos in Pennsylvania. And in Pennsylvania, particularly since you already have online gambling. So the idea here is not to dispute the comments, which I respect and are valid, and many of them concern me, but instead to encourage more focused comments on issues that are more likely relevant to this particular application. You know, there's a lot of things. I read comments about Atlantic City in the 80s. You know, with all due respect, that's apples and oranges. You know, Atlantic City was a crime-infested area already. They didn't have online gambling. You know, these were mob-owned casinos. So the point is maybe some of this information might help us gather as relevant as possible data and concerns that are applicable more to this situation that will help us. You know, if this moves forward, it will give us more information and data that we can use to help control what we can control. You know, and I think it would help everyone else, maybe those who don't realize some of these things have a better understanding. They can still be opposed to it, but at least it will help them focus and understand better, the surrounding context and make, allow for maybe, like I said, more focused and hopefully potentially more helpful to us, commentary as we're moving through this process. So those were the four things I wanted to throw out there, just to see if there was any support for possibly weaving any of those thoughts into the FAQs.
So I'll go to staff. You heard those four.
We did.
Of those, do you see a path that they could be included?
Yeah, the only item that was mentioned was actually the first that Mr. Veneer addressed, which was how our decision was somewhat different than those made by other center region municipalities. That may or may not be able to be woven into the existing question that is being addressed here, the second one. But either we could rework that to try to get that in, or just simply create a separate question to address that particular issue. That, to me, Mike?
Yeah, I would tend to agree. As you described it, Eric, I think, particularly to your first comment, that can be embedded into an existing question and more fully answer the question as you described it. So yeah, I think give us some time with that and we can certainly incorporate.
The other ones would all be new ones. And I want to refrain from editorializing. I would prefer us to just provide links to existing data that's out there that might be helpful. Sure. And I suspect as we work through this and hear from other folks, there may be others. And a lot of the comments that I read, I don't necessarily disagree with. I just don't, and some of them some of them are apples and oranges. Some of them aren't. I want to hear more comments that aren't, that are more closely related to the specific situation that we could be in Pennsylvania with the specific conditions and restrictions that are put on casinos, Category 4 casinos in Pennsylvania, where online gambling is already, say, pretty
Entrenched?
It's pretty well in use, I guess would be a way to put it.
Understood.
Just the only thing I would also add, in kind of the same vein, the municipal planning code the Pennsylvania Municipal Planning Code requires that every use has a home. So it's not, some of them, we would rather not, we've had discussions previously about adult businesses and stuff, and would like to say no, but the PA law says you have to have a home for everything. And so that's actually how the mall, that location ended up with that. That was what councils before this said, that's the best place for that if it's going to be here.
That's a good point, and I kind of glossed over that opportunity really bailed out a lot of municipalities in Pennsylvania who would have been stuck having to allow a casino anywhere in their municipality. We just happen to be a little bit further ahead of the curve in anticipating that coming online and say, protecting ourselves. We didn't know at the time people were going to get a free pass with the opt-out. We were just doing what we thought was our job as a municipality to prepare for what we thought at that time was the onset of this, and then of course it got delayed.
Right. So we've got the other items noted. Let's hear from everybody, and then we'll see if we coalesce around any of those. Next up, Dustin, please.
Oh, yeah. I want to start out with, I think it's good, but I think it needs to be a living thing, the FAQs, right? So we're getting a lot of letters. The idea of an FAQ is that someone's asking a question because they want an answer. So we can give feedback and we can say, hey, this is, my question, or this is what I think, good information should be in there. And I totally agree with Eric, good information put in there, but let's not limit it. Let's put, whatever questions are actual, real questions from the folks and the residents. Let's put it up there and try to get an answer. If we don't know the answer, let's just say we don't know the answer. And we'll be working on that to be determined or something like that. So that was the first point I wanted to make. The other thing that I have a question on that I'd like to be added to the FAQ, and I didn't write into the township for this, but I'm writing it now. Okay, so we know that it's in the state's hands now, right? What happens next? What happens if they approve? What happens if they don't approve? Right? What happens after that? Does it still stand? Can another person come in and submit for the license? What are the steps after that? Depending on the state situation. And maybe that's more into the timeline, to be determined date, but this would happen, right? I don't know. So, and then I'm just gonna go down my list here. And my second question is, what other things is casino planning to provide besides gambling? Right? What else is in their plan? Is there entertainment? Are they providing, community outreach? Are they required to do some sort of community outreach? We know about the gambling assistance, right? What else is going on with the casino besides just gambling? They bring in some other things, economic drivers, they bring in other entertainment venues, right? I know some folks have asked about that or even commented on it, the other entertainment besides the Bryce Jordan Center, and so on and so forth. I did like Eric's idea too. If you look at our website, it's actually arranged very well, and I just reviewed it again while Eric was talking. But within the FAQs, that's like right up front on the page instead of having to click into it, and maybe you have those hot button links embedded into the questions that take you right to the casino page, something like that. I'm good.
Okay. Carla, are you still with us?
I'm here.
Hi.
Hi. Okay. So I just want to be clear. I thought that Eric's requirements, well, I guess I'm adding to it a little bit. Eric's suggestion for the addition of requirements and standards of a category 4 casino, what they're expected to hold to, I do think that would be good. I agree with Dustin's what happens next and what else. I don't know if we'll be able to get an answer to this, but what else would a casino be able to provide, or this owner is willing to provide? I'm not sure. I also want to add quickly, I guess, the purpose of this white paper. I think you've done a great job drafting it up, and I think council and I hope the community appreciates the work that we've been putting into this. The purpose of this is because we are local government, and we, like the state level government, we won't even talk about federal level government, is so far from our reach as just residents. So what we're trying to do is be transparent and offer a window into everything that we know about, where this has been, where this is going. Yeah. So next I'd like to talk about the portion of the white paper that says, why did College Township choose not to pass an opt-out resolution in 2017? And I'm just going to be upfront and say I personally have not been asked my input on this, which I find maybe a little interesting. I'm not sure where you got this information. Maybe you went back and looked at old meetings. I don't know. Because none of these things are my reasons for not opting out at the time. Maybe it was all the rest of councils. I don't know. Maybe it's a consensus. But so I'm just gonna go ahead and offer mine because I do think that the
Carla,
people online.
how about we'll go ahead and answer that let's start with the answer to that question.
Yeah, the council was not polled in any way on this. This is entirely staff-driven, and essentially, the basis of the answer that is here, again, in draft form, really came out of the memo that was done in 2017. Some of the arguments that were made at that time in the agenda memo when council was considering whether to opt out or not. And so that's where the basis of these comments came from. So there's been no additional polling of members of council, no additional feedback. This is entirely staff-generated and is being presented here tonight in draft form. But that is the genesis of these comments.
And that's basically what was on the public record.
Yeah, I appreciate that, and that rings true. These do sound like the memo that was passed along to us at the time. So that makes sense. That makes sense, because you're just pulling from what you got. I understand that. So, while I have the floor, I will use this opportunity, just as Eric did. And some of my reasons are the same, do align with Eric's, and some of them maybe are align with ones that he just didn't say, or just align, I don't know. But we all had our reasons at the time. First, though, I do believe one question that was brought up quite frequently in the letters I've read through the last couple of days is, and actually somebody emailed me directly, which I always do appreciate. I do appreciate when people reach out to me directly, and said, are you for or against the casino? And my response to her was, unfortunately, it doesn't matter whether I'm for or against casinos. And so, I'll share with you what some of the things that I shared with her. Unfortunately, the position we're in as a second-class township does not care whether or not we elected officials are in favor or against casinos. Do I agree personally that the state of PA should be attempting to balance its budget via gambling? No, I don't. Do I suspect that the powers that be, quote unquote, i.e. state legislators, maybe a few billionaires, I don't know. Do I suspect that these people had Center County eyed up as a potential Category 4 casino landing? Yes, I do, and Jake Corman said as much in 2017. And of all the places a Category 4 casino could easily land in our quadrant of Center County, do I believe that College Township is best equipped to minimize potential negative effects? And my answer to that is yes, and I'll get into it a little bit more here. So if I was asked why in 2017 I didn't make a motion to opt out of casinos, here are my attempts to answer. One, College Township is located at the edge of the center region. Benner Township, Spring Township, and Potter Township also did not opt out of Category 4 casinos and are each within spitting distance of our municipality. The casino could have been located in any of those locales. Two, we already had, and Eric and Rich explained this excellently, we already had adult gaming in our zoning ordinance. Not only did we already have it in our zoning, but it was zoned down to basically just Macy's department store and its parking lot. And while the mall wasn't doing great in 2017, I truly did not foresee a behemoth like Macy's closing. I actually expected a Category 4 casino was going to be built just down the road in Benner Township. And three, this is philosophical, so you're welcome to disagree. But I believe that the laws spelled out in the municipality's planning code regarding zoning are well written and solidly founded. As a township that implements zoning, we are not permitted to quote unquote zone out any use as long as it's deemed illegal use in the state. That means in College Township, we are beholden by state law to allow places for medical marijuana to be sold, for adult-rated stores, places of assembly of all kinds, cell towers, public and private schools, hospitals, clinics, rehabilitation houses, daycares, prisons, gyms, manufacturing, industrial, office space, yoga studios, you name it, we cannot zone to keep any of these things out of our municipality. Until casinos came along, and all of a sudden the state was allowing us to opt out of a use it deemed legal. And at the time, we had a very short window to do it, and I personally didn't trust this scheme and felt it best to rely on our zoning as we had always done, and because that was the law. That said, it doesn't mean we have to zone a whole lot of land for each use, and this is the approach adult gaming fell into, being zoned at the Macy's and its parking lot. So in conclusion, again, I'm not for the casino, but nor do I believe it's being located in the mall is the worst case scenario. That would have been for it to be located just a mile or two down the road, in my opinion. As it is, we, College Township, has a say, and I fully intend to hold the gaming commission to the fire if we even sense that the casino is not correctly enforcing its liquor laws or appropriate management. One of the reasons I double requested Eric's request for the standards and requirements that they're beholden to. And I get the sense that many of you will be paying close attention as well. And what I hope to accomplish out of this meeting, besides looking at this draft white paper, and besides listening to all of you share your thoughts, if you wish to do so, is to let you know that we really are at attention about this situation, and we want to work with the community to bring about the best possible outcome now that Category 4 casinos have come to Center County. I love metaphors, and I'm really trying to avoid a whole lot of letting the cat 4 out of the bag, so I'll stop there.
I see what you did there.
Thank you, Carla. Paul?
Great, thank you. First, I want to start by thanking the manager, staff, and our solicitor for their efforts to update this FAQ and timeline. This issue is obviously generating a lot of public interest and input from across the region, not just College Township. And as we have for many months, I and I'm sure every one of my colleagues have read every letter and every email about this. Unfortunately, I believe there have at times been some misunderstandings, especially around things that are not actually directly addressed in the FAQ, some of which we've already alluded to here tonight. So I hope to use take this opportunity to hopefully all reach a greater sense of clarity and at the same time realistically assess what we as council can do. So with your indulgence and that of other members of council, I'd like to quickly go through them for those that may be unfamiliar. And I'd also like to preface this by saying that the casino decision was made prior to my joining council in January of 2020. Serving on council has certainly given me plenty of opportunities to learn new perspectives. It's taught me that in order to work toward a solution, we have to know all of the details and well as understand what can and cannot legally be done. And that honestly usually means a lot of late nights with at times some rather tedious reading. No offense, Lindsay. I wanted to share some of the things I've learned that may help clear up some misunderstandings. So I'll start with just a few basics. First, council has a very limited ability to control development. We are not developers or investors. Our duty is to seek an optimal balance between economic growth and progress while also protecting the best interests of our residents, existing businesses, and the environment to ensure the highest possible quality of life. The primary tool we have to achieve this is zoning. Zoning designates different areas of our township for residential, commercial, and other uses and sets reasonable rules and restrictions within each zone. However, it must be said, as both Rich and Carla mentioned, council does not have complete autonomy in that. We're guided and in many cases constrained by the Municipal Planning Code, or MPC. And because zoning can and does affect economic potential, Any changes to existing zoning may potentially expose the township and its residents to legal and/or financial liability if not done properly. So now, onto the casino. As you've heard, the approval of a gaming license currently rests with the Pennsylvania Gaming Control Board, not this council. In addition, the land development plan that council approved on September 16th was only for exterior improvements to the Macy's property. No approvals by council are needed for interior renovations or construction. And, per the MPC, council cannot arbitrarily deny a land development plan without cause. We also have our solicitor's opinion that the time has already passed for College Township to legally opt out or rescind already approved zoning or plans. And finally, we should keep in mind that the winning bid by SC Gaming placed the proposed casino somewhere within a 15-mile radius of Unionville. It should also be noted, as Carla did, that several nearby municipalities have also not opted out. In other words, even if College Township would somehow block this potential development, the can, as it were, may literally be kicked down the road just a few miles. If approved, this license would in all likelihood still be located somewhere in the greater center region. Again, this council's responsibility, as always, boils down to balancing economic growth and progress while maintaining our quality of life, the integrity of our communities, and protecting the health, welfare, and safety of every resident and visitor. The reality, however, is that the question of whether or not a casino is eventually built on the Nittany Mall may be realistically out of our hands at this point. But what is not out of our hands is our responsibility to maximize any benefits to our township and our region while minimizing or eliminating any potential costs or negative impacts to those we represent. So, if I might then, move on to a couple of questions. We clearly have a very large number of residents in our region who strongly oppose the approval of a casino license and the eventual establishment of any casino at the Nittany Mall. Some, in their letters, have suggested that council write a letter to the Pennsylvania Gaming Control Board conveying that abundance of community opposition and requesting that the casino's license be denied. I was going to pose this to our solicitor if he were available, but in his absence, I will convey it to the manager and perhaps by him to our solicitor. Hypothetically, if such a letter were to be written, would there be any legal or financial ramifications for the township in doing so? I think that's a very important question to ask. I know that many of this correspondence has already been shared with the PGCB, but I don't know whether council weighing in at this point would have any potential negative impact beyond simply writing a letter. That was my first question. My second question, an independent impact study done at the township's expense has also been suggested. My question to the manager and staff, is there any mechanism or precedent for doing that? And what is your opinion about the effect, if any, of doing so?
Carl, could you repeat that?
Sure. Several of the letters suggested that the township undertake an independent impact study at our expense. Is there any mechanism or precedent for doing so? And if we do, what is the opinion of the manager and staff and our solicitor, other members of council, as to what effect, if any, that might have?
In terms of precedent, the only thing that rises to that level were efforts that were made on behalf of council by staff in exploring the first student housing project that was constructed in College Township, which would have been the retreat, off of Old White Hill Road, in College Township, right on the borough line. And in fact, the complex actually shares property with the borough. At that time, College Township was very concerned, had received any number of letters, feedback from the public with respect to concern for increased policing and police hours. And we embarked on basically an independent study, an in-house independent study, whereby we contacted other properties where the developer, which was Landmark Properties, had been located. Those were primarily located in southern states at that time. And we had solicited feedback, information from those municipal police departments. And we assembled that information, and we had asked the State College Borough Police Department to work with us in analyzing that information. And I know at the time, Chief King was in office, and I know that Chief King had had several conversations with individual chiefs of police in those other communities. And essentially, that information was basically synthesized, and there was a report, if I recall correctly, that was provided back to council that basically identified that, yes, there were going to be additional calls, but in analyzing that information and analyzing the existing call volumes, the chief at the time indicated that for College Township there would be very little impact, and given the fact we already had a substantial number of hours that we were contracted with the police. So it's a long-winded answer to the question. We've done it before, at least in part, in a particular area. In terms of the benefit, the only thing, and I think it's subject to debate, can it be done? Absolutely, it could be done. I don't know that there would be a lot of additional information or value necessarily, only insofar as that the impact study that was prepared as part of the licensee requirement interviewed the same individuals locally that we would be going back and interviewing or asking for their analysis of the information at hand. So by that I mean they have spoken with Corey Miller, the executive director of the University Area Joint Authority, with respect to effluent and treatment capacity. They've spoken with the College Township Water Authority in terms of ability to supply water. They've spoken with LifeLink EMS with respect to additional calls that they might expect to receive from that size of an operation. So while we could do that, my suspicion is at the end of the day we would have rather similar answers, but it would be independent of what was done on behalf and required by the license, the operator that is seeking the license. But the same individuals would be involved in a similar type of analysis.
Well, and again, I think the impacts that were alluded to in the letter are different impacts than the ones you just described, or the ones that we, because some of them are potential impacts that you can't really see unless you go to another municipality and interview them and those kind of things. I was just curious, I wanted to address that because it was made, that suggestion was made several times. I had two other things that I thought might be worthy additions or clarifications to the FAQ. One is that for the entry for August 30th, 2019, around Act 63, I think it could be added, and correct me if I'm wrong, at the time, there were no Category 4 licenses available at that time. Is that correct?
That's correct.
They were all spoken for, so it was a somewhat hypothetical exercise at that point because there were none available. The only reason this particular outstanding license became available was because another previously awarded bid was disqualified. So that window, that 60-day window of opportunity did not seem as urgent perhaps at the time. So I think it's worth maybe noting at the time that those were not available. The other one was I think it would be helpful to add a list of the, I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to clarify. Are you suggesting like the May 29th, 2020 date, Act 23 of 2020?
August 30th, 2019, that entry, you could say in there, and I think that's where I had it, I'm reading from my notes, not directly from that, just adding, at that time, there were no Category 4 licenses available.
Okay.
Yeah, that's
Because-
correct, Paul, because the next entry talks specifically about
About the mountain area.
that license that then became available.
Okay.
It
in
sort of
November.
ties those
Yeah,
together.
It comes back to, it was returned in November, or, I'm sorry, the application was denied in November of 19. And it wasn't until, excuse me quickly, May 29th of 2020 that it was actually reopened for.
I remember because
An option.
I was on council at that point. Previously, I was not. And actually, just a little trivia, Macy's announced they were closing as I was being sworn in, so I will never forget that date.
Paul, I mean, that clarification could be added to both. You could add the clarification to the November 2019, which this denial made a license available, right? You know, basically.
Sure, that's what I was saying.
Yeah,
You know,
trying to
at the time,
understand, yeah.
there were 2 opt-out windows,
Yeah.
right? The first one was in 2017. That was an act of council. The second opt-out was almost like a passive opt-out. There was no decision made because at the time,
There was no
it was
decision
an
to be made.
academic kind of question because there were no licenses available. I just wanted to clarify that because it wasn't entirely clear reading through. I think it's worth adding a list of the Center County municipalities that did not opt out, or at least adding a link to the Gaming Control Board website that lists the 200 that did. And by process of elimination, you can figure out which ones did not. And there are several within that 15-mile radius of Unionville. So, those are my additions. I think based on comments that we have or other things, I think we could very easily expand this FAQ to Dustin's point about making it a living document and incorporate some of those additional comments and questions. I believe that this document and timeline, along with the comments we've heard so far and the public comment that we'll hear shortly, are very helpful to clarify the situation. I certainly hope my brief review of the status of where we are as well. So thank you, Mr. Chair. That's all I had for the moment.
Great, thank you. One of the benefits of going last is my peers, as they do many times, speak a lot of my thoughts and everything. Talking through the various things, I agree, if we can get a requirements and standards section in there, I think that is very relative. I echo Carla's thoughts on, you know, our utmost effort in being transparent in this whole situation, that what we know, our residents know. Carla touched on that the items listed in the FAQ didn't necessarily reflect her reasons on everything, and I could concur with that. The big thing, I don't know if I could get a consensus among council, and let alone go retroactively back. I mean, that's revisionist history, but I have no problem sharing what my thoughts were at that time. And a lot of them, Carla actually already mentioned, and, you know, the one was that gambling had been allowed in that specific location for quite a while and everything, and what fundamentally changed that it should not now be allowed and everything. And you could argue that the implementation of casinos the gaming laws and everything could be that item. But I stayed up to date on that and am very clear that Pennsylvania is the most regulated gambling state in the country. And I'm very happy for that. If we're gonna have gambling, I'm for it. Of course, I'm one of those that also likes our control of the liquor. I know that's not a popular thing, but if it's something that can do bad, then I think the more control you have over it, the better. And that kind of goes to Carla's point. I do believe that College Township is best equipped to mitigate the potential negative impacts in this. And it was very much factored into my thinking, Shiloh Road, and that there was an incredible probability that it was going back to, it had been stated that Center County was an absolute target for these Category 4 licenses and everything. By us affording an opportunity, it was reusing existing infrastructure versus that new infrastructure being pushed out on there. And again, nothing against our neighbors or anything, but I believe that we were in the best position to have our controls in place. The other thing that has kind of got me a little bit, and Eric alluded to a little bit, is that it feels like there's a presumption that council didn't do any research when this all came out and everything. And I can only speak for myself, but having worked with the members of council there, this council does its homework. And one of the things that hamstrung us is there are no studies that show the impact of a Category 4 casino, which is unique to Pennsylvania, and there wasn't any. And again, in Pennsylvania, being totally different than the Wild Wild West that Atlantic City was back then and everything, and just the sheer size difference between those things. So that it didn't escape, I know it didn't escape me in looking at the potential negatives in it. And again, as Eric indicated, I got to an apples to orange comparisons and everything. And so then when I took what staff has included in here, that pushed me to be correct. Council took no action. It wasn't that we took an action, say, hey, we want a casino. I know there are some municipalities that actively recruited this. College Township was not one of those. But we also didn't say, no way, Jose, kind of thing. So, those things factored into my thinking at that time. As we've gone on, one of the things that I'm proud that we did as a council is we proactively went to one of these to see what it looked like. And in particular, it was one that it was at a dying mall, and it hadn't been open long enough. We met with the municipality, we talked with their people, what problems have you found, and everything like that. I encourage us to do that again. There's a couple more now that are open, and just open up the dialogue between staff and elected officials and say, what problems did you get surprised by? What issues have come up and everything? And that's right in line with what this council has done historically and everything. So those are there. So to specific comments on the timeline, I think I agree that the one addition there makes sense. I honestly could not think of any other dates or of significance that came in with regard to the individual questions. I definitely think it should be referenced about the municipal planning code and the requirement that all uses have a home. and everything, and even potentially the historical, well, in 2006, you do have that and everything, but that also puts it into perspective in everything. The standard, I already said the requirements and standards. Next steps, I think, are good. The only thing that I am a little leery on is if we start going down a speculative road. In that, this or that or the other thing. It could be even that, what else is in the plan. If there's a plan posted as part of the application, absolutely, we should include that. But until the license is approved or denied, they have the opportunity to adjust their plan, if I'm not mistaken. So, they could say this or that, and then that not bear fruit. So, in general, what I think we've tried to do through the whole course of this is speak in fact, in things that we could document and, really point to in the realities of things. So I just caution us about getting too far into the speculative on those type of things. And bottom line, at this point, the ball is in the Gaming Commission's hands. And no pun, there's a Penn State football game on. But but certainly that, it would be beneficial that they take some action, because we're prepared. If they deny it, we move forward. If they approve it, we move forward. And I think what Carla alluded to is we're going to put everybody we can on notice that this is how you said you were going to run it, and this is how you better run it, because we'll be knocking on your door if not. So I think, once that decision gets made, there'll be additional discussions at council. We'll put the planning wheels into effect, and we will do our best not to be in a reactive mode. So, okay. So for all you folks that have joined us this evening, thank you. Certainly this is the most audience we've had since chickens, probably. I don't know. Hilltop. Well, chickens brought out a fair good room too.
Rich,
So,
just one question.
okay, go ahead.
If you will.
Please.
Mr. Chair, to your point about going back and talking to other municipalities and other governments that have experience now, one particular that I'd be interested in is what kind of, and your last sentence really sparked this, what kind of ongoing interaction do they have with the casino staff and those running it? Is that something to, kind of minding the store and keeping that, keeping their promises? What kind of government interaction they do? I think that's a big answer. That's one big question that just sparked.
Great.
Thank you.
Great, sir. Paul, did you have
Just
something?
before we go to public comment or anything else, I was curious, the one date in here, August 26th, was the deadline for petition to intervene. Do we happen to know, would any of that be under seal? Do we know whether there has been a petition to intervene?
Yeah, we reached out with knowing that the date was Friday, the 26th. We received information from the communications department at the Pennsylvania Gaming Control Board. Yes, there was a petition to intervene. That is Stadium Gaming, which is also owned by the Cordish Group, which is the same group that has a lawsuit in Commonwealth Court. So they did in fact intervene in the process, and our understanding is that that petition will be heard by the Gaming Control Board at its meeting on October 19th, I believe it is.
It's in here.
Okay, so that's in here. Okay.
So perhaps an update then to
Yes.
the August 26th,
Yes.
just to keep us updated as we sort of have that timeline going.
Absolutely, Paul, and this goes back to one of Dustin's earlier comments. These, as staff envisions them as living documents moving forward. It's particularly that timeline's just going to continue to evolve. And as more questions come in, if we can provide answers, we can do that.
Sure. And to that point, that was another thing that occurred to me, and I forgot to put it in my notes. Should we allude to the fact that there is a Commonwealth Court lawsuit that is pending relative to this? I don't recall that being in here.
Yes, October of 2021, Cordish Companies files suit.
Okay, all right. I
Yep.
had it covered up with another comment.
Yep.
I apologize. That
Yep.
was where I got the.
Yep.
And then just, again, finding out from our solicitor what, if any, implications we would have. That's just a really important thing to me.
Sure, I think staff's got that.
Got that?
Great,
recorded.
thank you.
So, again, thank you for joining us. This is not an action item, so as such, technically, it does not require council opening it to public comment. Obviously, we intend to open it to public comment, but we are going to set some rules of the game, if we will. We're going to treat it similar to a public hearing in that we will receive your comments. We are absolutely not going to debate at this time. After we hear all the public comments, we, as council, will deliberate and decide what action, if any, needs to additionally happen. In this, in asking for comment, I would implore you, we seriously have read all of the comments and take them very much to heart. We would ask that anybody that speaks try not to regurgitate things that are already of the public record. As we've indicated, we've done our best to be transparent, and they are fully encapsulated on our website, available to all. To Mr. Bernier's point, we are welcome constructive comments that help us navigate the path forward. And finally, what we're going to do is, first and foremost, this council works for the residents of College Township. So as such, the order that we're going to go in accepting comments will be College Township residents, and I'm going to, just for simplicity's sake, I'm going to start with those folks in the room. Then we will go online. Any College Township residents that are there that wishes to speak to council on this matter will be identified. From there, we'll go with our fellow center region residents. Again, we'll flip it. We'll go online first for our center region guests, and then into the room. Next, we'll go with our fellow Center County residents. That one will start in the room, and then we'll go online. And then finally, if there's anybody left after that, we would welcome hearing from you, and we will identify that. For those in the room, I would ask you to step to the lectern, and anybody who speaks, for the public record, we need your name and municipality. What did I miss, staff? Anything? Good.
I don't think so, unless were you going to set any kind of a
Time limit.
overall?
Well,
time?
overall, again, I would say we're subject to the public open discussion, limited to no more than 5 minutes, provide who, what, where, and why, et cetera.
Okay,
All right?
you got it.
With that said, we open the room to anyone wishing to speak to council. Sir, please.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Stephen Smith, resident of College Township in Tilda. I had not really planned to speak, but some of the things that I've heard discussed have encouraged me to go a little bit of a spine, a little bit of a backbone. The things that concern me, basically, are some of the things that are attendant to gambling addiction, gambling crime. We've talked about this, you guys have talked about it, you guys have researched this. Is there anywhere that gambling has taken hold where crime has gone down? Councilman Bernier referred to state police being in the casinos. I think it seems obvious at this point, why are they there? Why would they be there? Why do we have these regulations? Because crime surrounds areas where massive amounts of money are changing hands. And they would only be concerned with the casino property itself. Once somebody drives off that property, it is not attendant on the casino owner. So what about the crime that spills out? And I guess the other thing that got me thinking about this is all of the lies that come from the gaming industry, actually gambling, but they've changed the game. It's gambling. And what I'm trying to figure out is the role of this overarching our society. Because it is now ubiquitous. You cannot turn on a sporting event without seeing advertising for online gambling. It is completely ubiquitous. There will not be a commercial break during a Phillies game or a Pirates game without this. So I don't even understand why anyone would invest in a brick and mortar. This is almost like trying to start a newspaper in this day and age. It's not going to happen. And for the record, CDT alone. We were promised in this state, I think it was 2003, that gambling revenues would be used to address runaway property taxes. Has anyone's property taxes gone down? Rhetorical question, I'm sure. Between that fundamental line and anything that the gaming industry says about itself, touting itself as a panacea, should be viewed with a jaundiced eye. They're not here for our benefit. They're not here for any outreach. They are in business to make money. And the way they make money in an area is by taking it from its residents. Can't really, you know, I guess that's really the point I want to make. I mean, I would expect my representatives, whether they be township, state, federal, I would expect them to look at any claims with a healthy degree of skepticism and not from a lobbying perspective. And that's what I'm asking for. And quite frankly, this is a little bit of a tangent, but I'm worried about where we are as a country when it is clear there is a massive amount of opposition to this in this community, not only College Township, but the surrounding center region and some of the townships. If our representatives either won't or can't and have their hands tied to do what we ask them to do, then where are we as a representative democracy? Where are we as a republic? Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Please, I understand your passion, but that it's not really appropriate that we have rounds of applause for each speaker. And it will continue our evening. Anyone else in the room wishing to speak to council on anything?
I'm wishing, but I'm not from College Township, so I'm assuming.
Right, so we said College Township in the room, College Township remote, then we're gonna go Center Region remote, Center Region in the room, Center County in the room, Center County out of the room. Anybody else? So any other College Township residents in the room wish to speak to council on this matter? Going once. Going twice. Sold. Going online. Mike, if you would, please help me. If there's anybody that wishes, from College Township, that wishes to speak to council on this matter, please raise your digital hand if you would. If that's not, wave at us. We'll catch you. Anybody, Mike?
At this point, I'm not seeing any hands up or anybody waving.
Okay, very good. At this point, we'll go to our fellow Center Region residents online. Are there anyone that wishes to speak to council on this matter? I'm seeing Mr. Schaefer.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you tonight. I did take a number of notes during your presentation, so I appreciate it if you bear with me as I read through some of the responses and questions I have. First, I want to note that I do appreciate the council members' intent to control the damage of the casino. And I would like to emphasize that you recognize implicitly in that statement that the casino is destructive. As such, it should only be a question of tactics regarding how we would stop the casino from damaging this community any more than absolutely necessary. And while I appreciate your intent to control it under your own auspices of government in College Township, I posit that it will be much more effective for us to stop it from coming to the region entirely. As you can see, there's a tremendous amount of opposition in College Township and the surrounding area against this casino. We will oppose any casino in our region, whether it's in College Township or a mile down the road or 15 miles down the road. We don't want it here. And we will oppose that to the Gaming Control Board and to whatever local municipality and state officials are necessary to accomplish that. There was much discussion tonight regarding an independent impact report, and I believe that's an excellent idea. I want to note that such a report really does need to be independent, and it needs to be comprehensive. In looking at the ESI impact report, it's laughable that this report was ever accepted. If you look at the list of benefits and downsides of the casino that are contained in the report, there are places where it explicitly states that there are no downsides whatsoever. They have listed any benefit that they can while minimizing or ignoring downsides. There's no discussion whatsoever of economic cannibalization. I've already submitted documentation to you, which you have responded to in a previous meeting, indicating that the crime statistics in that report were understated by an order of magnitude. As you pointed out, that crimes that were not addressed by the local municipal police were ignored in that report. Well, the crimes that are addressed by the state by the state police still affect the victims of those crimes and their families. And those crimes matter to us who live in this region, and I believe to you as well. But that report did not capture them. And to my knowledge, that was not challenged until I wrote to your board. Why are you, as our representatives, not challenging this information and validating it for yourself, whether it's accurate? And the third factor would be the economic impact on the labor market. The casino is saying that it will create jobs. Well, any business there is going to create jobs, but we're in the midst of a historic labor shortage. Is this actually a beneficial thing to our community right now, or is it going to compete with our existing businesses and raise the cost of their staying in business? In which case we will be substituting a casino in place of existing businesses for the families who live in our region and the areas that have been part of our community's culture for decades. You did do research investigating other casinos, Category 4 casinos in a dying mall. You went there and spoke with the people who are in charge of those municipalities to ask what their impacts are. I want to point out that study involves asking somebody who's inherently biased. You're asking the recipients of tax dollars that come from that facility to tell you what might be wrong with it. They're going to be incentivized to say that they made a good decision in allowing that casino to come there, and also to keep that casino there and not allow public opposition against it to increase. So you need to get a broader perspective on that. You need to get feedback from victims of the gambling addiction who are out in the community. Those effects are dispersed. To find those people, you really need to look at academic research. And I'd like to offer a website that I put together, saynocasino.org, where I've gathered enormous amounts of research regarding gambling, gambling addiction, predatory gambling that's inflicted upon citizens by the state, specific details regarding Bally's Corporation. You asked for specific things regarding our situation. There's information that's specific to Bally's Corporation, to Ira Lubert's Casino in Valley Forge. even to things that are related to the Nittany Mall. So there's a wealth of information there. I strongly encourage you to go through each resource on that site and consider it. And if you can't answer the concerns that are raised in those articles, then we need to put the brakes on this project, because these are forces that are too big for a municipal government that has the limited powers that you described in your presentation to be able to control. You mentioned that other opportunities would potentially be stuck with holding a casino. That statement also implicitly acknowledges that you realize that the casino will be a harmful influence on our community, that they didn't have the opportunity, you didn't know they would have an opportunity to opt out. I'm disappointed that this council did not opt out when it had the opportunity, despite your explanation of why. But that does not mean that we should accept that the casino will come and then implicitly benefit from the harms that it's going to cause. The College Township should financially benefit while inflicting financial harms on all of its neighbors. If you truly mean to help this entire region minimize that damage, you need to be looking at how you will take the tax revenue that you receive from the casino and distribute that to the surrounding municipalities, which are also impacted, in order to offset the damage that's caused there. I have not heard any discussion of a proposal along those lines. If you intend to be good neighbors to your surrounding municipalities, of which I am a resident, I believe that would be a good faith first step. Again, I apologize. I'm responding to things you actually said and not simply reading a prepared statement here. If this casino is denied, which I believe you could heavily influence that decision if you were to write that letter to the Gaming Control Board. The Gaming Control Board has a mandate to balance the interests of local host municipalities with the interests of the Commonwealth. And it has denied the license for casinos in the past, most notably at Gettysburg, because the casino did not fit with the objectives and values of the surrounding community there. Similar to in State College, we have a university less than 5 miles away from where this casino is cited to be built. And for that reason alone, we are uniquely unsuitable as a place to have a casino when gambling addiction rates among young adults of college age are 6 times higher than they are in the general adult population, for reasons of human psychology which are well documented and understood in the research that was on the website I shared earlier. If you send a letter to them, that will be the most powerful evidence that could be given to the Gaming Control Board indicating that they should deny the license for this casino. And if they are responsible to fulfilling their mandate, I believe that they will deny the license. If that happens, despite the fact that the council has not opted out of being eligible to host, if another attempt is made to build a casino here, as happened in Gettysburg, the local community opposition is already organized and will defeat that again. If they try to build it down the road, we will defeat that again as well, and we can protect this region from having any casinos here. But in order to do that, we need your help. We need you to send that letter. I appreciate your concerns that there may be some liability issues involved if you do send that letter. I would argue that the immediate cost to the township in paying those costs will be far less than the long-term cost that would be incurred if the casino comes here and stays for decades. So I appreciate your attention and the opportunity to speak to you this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Schaefer.
Mr. Chair, what was his municipality?
Mr. Schaefer?
Yes?
We missed your, what municipality are you resident of?
I apologize. I'm in State College Borough, 224 South Buckout Street.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you. Sorry, I can't read the name from the distance.
Last name is Datso.
Ms. Datso?
Thank you. I'm Sultram Dazzo, and I live in the borough of State College. Do you need my address?
No, just your municipality, ma'am. Thank you.
As a citizen and professional psychologist, I strongly oppose granting a license for a casino to be located in the Nittany Mall for the following reasons. This is a college town and county. This college town and county already has a public health problem of addiction to alcohol and opioids, and a casino would provide easy opportunities for developing gambling addiction in an already local addictive culture of alcoholism. And it's been challenging dealing with that in State College. I don't think we need more challenges of that nature. About 6% of college-aged adults exposed to gambling develop problem gambling behavior, and that's a really horrendous way to be starting out your life as an adult. And our mandate, I think, is to guide and support people to be independent and have a fulfilling life and contribute to society. In casinos, one can lose more than money. Gambling disorder is a mental health condition in the DSM-5, recently added. There's a loss of relationships, jobs, and education if gambling becomes a problem. Becoming dependent on others like friends, family, government support, unrealistic and disordered thinking, and unfortunately, a higher prevalence of suicide than in the general population for people who have a gambling problem. Casinos contribute to problems, I think, that have been mentioned, like disturbing the peace, interpersonal conflict in private and public, and economic hardship. In a community and time when people are stressed and depressed due to the pandemic, economic challenges, academic pressures, and world events, developing a gambling disorder is more common, reaching for something to kind of distract you or numb you out. A casino in our area is not a good example of a sustainable, life-giving activity, especially for 40,000 students. In fact, the fact that the main investor was a member of the Penn State University Board of Trustees suggests profiting from the very students he was charged with protecting, educating, and preparing to launch into life as happy and productive citizens. There are many other kinds of investment projects that would enhance rather than detract from the well-being of residents in Center County. Building community through activities that promote connection and support, shared and mutually beneficial activities of cultural interest, such as sports, arts, nature, ecotourism, service, music, recreation, and cross-cultural exchange, to name a few. So thank you for taking the time to register my concerns, and I wish you the best in choosing a path that will benefit all. Thank you.
Thank you, greatly appreciated. Anyone else online from either College Township or our Center Region neighbors? Okay. In the room.
Wait a minute.
Oh,
Wait,
Ms. Bouchard.
okay,
wait.
okay.
I can't get my picture up.
Hey,
here.
there you are.
I hear that I'm Joan Bouchard. Ah, there we are. Can you hear me?
We can.
Okay, that's good. Thank you very much. I live in Patton Township. I'm not very tech savvy. And at the Village of Penn State at 240 Lions Hill Road, apartment E101. And I've been listening very carefully to the comments, which have enlightened me in many ways about what the options are. And I'm going to say my piece about why I think it would be dangerous to have it here. Then I'm going to make a couple of comments about possible ways forward. So I'm speaking at this meeting because I'm the parent of a gambling addict, and he's 43 years old, and it's caused him financial difficulty ever since he was 21 due to his addiction. His financial life has been a touch-and-go experience, and therefore so has mine, in terms of my financial stability, trying to keep him, housed and fed and so forth. And I know that there are many parents and family members of gambling addicts that have stories much worse than this, including wrecked marriages and early death. So I can see that a whole generation of PSU students whose future would be blighted if they show up at the casino, because an addict is born with a propensity for addiction, but it lies dormant until the first exposure. And by then, the bug has bitten and it's too late to stop without help. and that downwards spiral has begun. So I am asking that the council consider what council member Tecax has suggested, that we either write to the PGCB to deny the request. We've changed our mind, and we ask you to deny the request, or at least consider doing some kind of an impact study which would include the new mini casinos that Stadium Gaming LLC have put up in Pennsylvania, 2 of them that I know of, or in Philadelphia, and the other one's in Pittsburgh. You may have done this as part of your research, but I don't know. But they've been up and running for more than 18 months, and I'd be very curious to know what are the reactions of the people that live in that neighborhood and the other citizens of both of those cities to how this casino is actually being run, and what its disadvantages, if any, have been. I'm really shocked, to tell you the truth, that a PSU alumnus and trustee is willing to expose the students of his own alma mater to the danger of gambling for his own personal financial gain, and the speaker in front of me would mention that also. And I'm sure there are plenty of other people that have that opinion too. So that's his decision, but it doesn't have to be your decision. And what I was thinking about when I was trying to figure out what I was going to say today is, are you folks here willing to live with the responsibility for the number of kids that begin a life of gambling at the casino and ruin their lives because you didn't do something to prevent this, which you could or should have done? And are you willing to bear the responsibility for the local businesses like movie theaters and restaurants and so forth, and bars that would close because the students choose to go out to the casino instead of patronizing their establishments? And as far as crime and prostitution are concerned, and also children and pets left in locked cars where their parents gambled, and the impoverishment of senior citizens that follows inevitably when a casino opens, are you willing to not do something to investigate whether there's a better use for this property? And I'm asking this partly because for 20 years I lived near Foxwoods and Mohegan Sun in Connecticut, and I know what I'm talking about. I've seen all these things with my own eyes when I went there to see musical performances, and it was heartbreaking. Senior citizens would sit at their machines with diapers on so that they didn't have to go to the bathroom if they felt that they were on a winning streak. So I really can't think of a worse experience for our community than the opening of a casino here, except maybe being hit by a hydrogen bomb. So I would like to ask you that you do anything that you can to think more carefully about this and how we can get out of this without incurring, lawsuits against us and so on and so forth. There must be a way, and I don't think we've given it enough thought. And thank you very much for your time and listening to what I had to say. Oh, did I say my name was Joan Bouchard?
You did.
I'm not sure.
Yes, you did. Thank you, and you're a resident of Patton Township. And you went a little past 5 minutes, but we got you. We got you. So, anybody else online from our... That's a thumbs up. Yeah, okay. All right, let's turn back to the room. Any of our fellow Center Region residents wish to speak? Please come to the lectern.
I'm Dorothy Blair, and I'm from Harris Township, and I'm here to speak mostly on my own, but I also represent the Nittany Valley Environmental Coalition, because I think this is an environmental issue. It's about the environment of this area and what we're trying to make it or undo it. So I had about 3 points to make, but some of them have been covered, and so I'm going to change what I'm going to have to say. I'm not aping the letter I sent you guys, but I did my research today and looked deeply at how the money is being used. I mean, we assume it's being used for good, but that is not necessarily the case. I am a former professor from Penn State, and I have a very strong bad feeling about having a casino here because of the mix of alcohol and gambling is pretty heady, and it reinforces each other. I think that's why I don't think you can say that that lotteries and casinos are the same. There's a sort of entertainment thing that goes on to get people to go and reduce their inhibition. Now, we have 9,200 people at Penn State who could be affected by this, in that according to the National Academy of Sciences, that about 5% of adults experience problem gambling, but it's 20% of people in the college age, and they are mobile, and not all of them will have liquor capability, but sometime in their career at Penn State they will, and they will be able to go there already juiced up by all the gambling that they're allowed to do in various ways. So I'm really very sad that this will be available in our area. So if the gambling addiction is known to follow the availability of gambling in an area, and this adds just one more thing combined with alcohol. And PA is only second to Nevada in gambling revenue and gambling, and there's probably no reason why we don't, that we have a month that is safe gambling month in Pennsylvania, because it goes up, the number of people who are addicted to gambling is going up. Okay, I think we've already talked about property values and gambling, though they do seem to go down in other places around the gambling area. So you might want to check that out. The one thing I'm concerned with is actually where the money goes. And Eric Benner, I don't think that you can say that all gambling is the same, because what happens is that the state uses gambling from lotteries to pay for the elderly and for programs for the elderly. But it's quite different with casinos. With casinos, it's regressive. Only home or landowners get tax relief, and it's not really made very apparent how you get that relief. I just found out that I'm eligible. I didn't know. Not that it's very much, but I don't think a lot of people know, and a lot of people own houses, and those are probably the ones that lost their houses. They're providing your gambling money, but they're losing their own livelihood through that gambling. So only Philly has a less regressive approach. It reduces wage taxes rather than putting it toward housing. And I think that would be a lot, if we had that capability of deciding where that money went, I think that would make a big difference. Because it should go toward people who are suffering from the gambling itself, or to poor people who actually need it. 11% goes to support the horse racing industry, which I think is very peculiar. 5% goes to an economic trust fund, and 4%, of course, will go to College Township if you support the gambling casino. So I feel like this is not a good thing for our area because of the students. I mean, the students are really at risk here. 20% of them are problem gamblers, according to the National Academy of Sciences. Only 5% adults.
Ms. Blair, we're well past our 5 minutes.
Oh, I'm sorry.
But-
So I will stop there, but
Thank you.
I hope you if we could look into changing how that money is allocated.
Sure.
I think it is quite different. Thank you.
Thank you, appreciate it. Anyone else in the room from our center region? Yes, sir.
I don't know what the right range is here. My name is Paul Schaefer. I'm a resident of State College Borough. And Mr. Kanak, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, has already... Takak?
Yes, sir.
Has already spoken to the conclusion that I'd like to draw when I'm presenting. Mr.
Bernier, yes.
I very much appreciate the analysis that you've done of the consent materials that were presented earlier in the presentation. But I believe what I'm about to read speaks to something that none of what you spoke to addresses, puts a personal face on it, and I think regardless of which century, or excuse me, which decade you're talking about in gambling, that it would apply. So, for a few weeks this summer, my wife and I, excuse me, gathered signatures of those opposed to the casino at the Nittany Mall. While it's not statistical, we estimate that we received 8 or 10 responses in opposition to every one that we heard that was favorable. What is of particular note is that those that were most adamantly opposed were those who had lived previously in communities where there were casinos. They spoke of how it changed the character of the community and had numerous horror stories of how the casinos preyed upon their patrons and destroyed lives and families. The one I found most poignant was in speaking with a man who had worked for a casino in the Midwest. He told of how following his military service, he went to work as security in a casino. One night there was a disturbance on the gaming floor and he was called upon to intervene. What he found was a man trying to get his wife to stop gambling and leave the casino. The man pleaded that his wife had emptied their bank account and then their checking account and was now maxing out their credit cards. The individual recounting this story to me then said with considerable sadness in his voice, and I had to remove the husband from the floor because she was a paying customer. We understand that you may not be able to rescind your previous approval for the casino, but surely there is nothing that prevents you from communicating to the Pennsylvania Gaming Control Board and the developer that you no longer regard a casino at the Nittany Mall as being in the best interest of this community. I would request that you communicate to the Pennsylvania Gaming Control Board and request that they deny a license for this casino. And again, this has already been spoken to. It's looked upon to be investigated. I have a number of concerns in regard to that. I applaud the request. Thank you. It is what we've been saying. I am concerned, however, with what seems to be a perception of an attitude amongst the council to readily pass it on that this is no longer in our control. There's nothing that we can do about this. It resides entirely with the Pennsylvania Gaming Control Board. If this is approached with that attitude, then no, there will be no impact. But in our representative government, as was spoken to earlier, you are the representatives of this community. I would ask that this would be approached with an attitude of let's find a way to stop this. The Gaming Control Board spokesperson, when they were interviewed on the radio earlier in the year, spoke to the fact that they make their decision as to whether the casino is not simply in the interest of Pennsylvania, but also in the interest of the community. If you folks communicate clearly that this is not in the interest of the community, it is not desired, the constituency does not want it here, or anywhere else in this region, and as was spoken to earlier, those will be battles to be fought later. But I would request that you approach it strongly with an attitude of let's find a way to stop this. And at this point, the only way that I see for that to be the case is for you to communicate to the Gaming Control Board that you don't want it here. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Schaefer. Anyone that's in the room? Yes, sir.
Hello, my name is Benjamin Waldecker and I reside in Center Hall. I wanted to take...
First up, is there anybody else? You might have come in after we're doing the Center Region, Center County, and then you may be next. Don't go away. Is there anybody else from the Center Region that wishes to speak? Okay, now you go. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Sorry about that.
No problem.
One of the things that brought me here tonight is I look around and the personal conviction I hold is that people are created in the image of God. Each and every individual has an indistinct value. And I believe with that, as a believer, that there are certain things we should fight for and we should look after people, such as health, hunger, healthcare, and there are these different things that we should go after to make sure we supply for people. Well, in some of those things we see that degrade people are hunger, depression, and addiction. And that is one thing I fear that we are inviting to this community with this project. Bringing that in is an open door to see a downgrading lifestyle in the people of this community. Yes, it's been addressed. This project will bring jobs and it'll bring revenue to the community and to the government here. But in bringing those jobs and revenue, first off, there are many jobs already available in this community. Almost every business is hiring, and there's already a considerable stream of income coming in. My fear is with this project, it will also bring in such things as debt, addiction, and broken homes. And these are the type of things I do not want to see in this community. I've had the privilege of working with college students on campus in a mentoring role, and I've seen students that are caught up in the party lifestyle, bound up by alcohol and addiction and the other various things that are welcomed on that campus. In creating a place just minutes down the road that will help encourage that, I believe it's a terrible idea. I do encourage you, please write to that commission and recommend that they do not send a casino here. If you do not, I do not mean to be rude, but in all due respect, I do believe you have a role in inviting that in if you do not take every step you can to keep that from our community. So I do ask that you do all you can. Thank you very much for your time, and I do ask that you consider this and take all the action that you possibly can. I'm thankful for this community, I'm thankful for the students we have here, and I want to do everything we can to protect them. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, sir. Anybody else from Center County here in the room? Yes, sir.
Hi, my name is James Bennett. I live in Ferguson Township. I wanted to start by saying that I really appreciate the opportunity to be able to speak on this, and I really feel educated after everyone has been speaking, and it's been a good experience to be here. I wanted to start out by saying that I want to share about my own personal experiences and not from a perspective of numbers and statistics and studies, but having been affected by it where I've lived in the past. I spent over 20 years in Maryland, and I worked about 3 minutes away from Arundel Mills Mall, which just happens to be the second largest mall in America. And they brought a casino into the mall, and it just had a negative effect on the community. The traffic was just so snarled up that nobody wanted to go near it. But it's just, I saw all the negative effects of it, and having been in that situation, I started seeing what could happen as a result of this casino coming into town. A couple things I looked up was the vision statement and the mission statement for College Township, and I just thought it was some well-worded statements. It says College Township shall be a model of excellence. I think someone quoted one of these. College Township shall be a model of excellence in local government, a safe, well-planned community with equal opportunity for all. And the mission statement is the mission of College Township is to protect and enhance quality of life while facilitating responsible growth and maintaining harmony between rural and urban areas in an efficient and responsible manner for all its citizens. And I just feel like the bringing the casino in is not going to be model of excellence. Some of the things that I've seen with regard to casinos and the effects of them was, one of the questions I had was, how will the increase in crime, which is obvious. I mean, I saw that as a result of this casino that was in the mall. How's that increase in crime is gonna protect and enhance life in our community? It's gonna come. We're gonna have increase in crime, whether we admit it or not. And staffing up, adding extra police is not gonna be the answer. With people opposed to the casino, how will harmony between rural and urban be maintained? I just spoke to a guy today at work who said, I won't even go to that side of town anymore if that comes in. It was just, it was his opinion of it. He wasn't even against it. He just said, I just won't go there. But when I lived in Maryland, I had a close friend that had a problem with gambling. He was addicted. And it wasn't like he was that way all along. It suddenly came up. He came to me telling me he had a problem with gambling. He had lost an amount of money that he had to pay back or they were going to come after him. And he talked me into giving him money because he said, I'm going to pay him off. I'm done with gambling. And I wanted to help him. It wasn't a huge amount of money, but I helped him, and it turned out that he was lying to me. He went back to Atlantic City and gambled the money and lost it. So he ended up more in debt, or didn't get rid of his debt. And this addiction transformed him into a deceiver and a liar. And this is a guy that I'd known for years, and just to see that was very disheartening, to see what it did to his life. And then as some of the other people spoke earlier, the psychologist, and I've seen a lot of the negative side of addictions, and I don't think bringing a casino in is going to help with those issues. I agree with the last lady that spoke that was talking about addictions in the state college, the fact that obviously there's drinking problems at any college, but we're going to be feeding more addictions if we bring this in. And what about the students? What about the effects this will have on students who don't have an abundance of money? Casinos do not produce winners. Casinos produce addicts. Casinos leech off of people that can't afford to gamble. Students are going to believe the lie that they're going to win at blackjack because they played it and go into casinos and lose money. That's the bottom line. They're going to. There's no doubt about it. And it's lies like that is going to have a negative effect on lives. It's going to ruin some people's lives. I'm not saying everybody that goes there is going to have an addiction, because that's not true. But if it brings a percentage of people that are going to get addicted and it's going to have that effect on their lives, is it really worth the cost? Anytime you go to build something, you evaluate the cost and you say, should I build this? Is it worth it? Well, I don't think this is worth building. I think there could be better uses for that land than to build a casino. And casinos are successful because they know how to win. The odds are against the gambler are heavily stacked against them. It's not designed to help the customer. It's designed to feed off the customer with very little benefit to the customer. My experience with gambling was going to Las Vegas, get a free hot dog, get $5 in chips, play it, and then I left. And it was entertainment, I agree. But if I started pulling out my wallet, then I could see how easy it would be to get addicted to it. So who wins in this scenario? The casino turns out to be very profitable. At whose expense will it be? Do we really want to tempt the over 46,000 students with gambling? The only winner is the casino. Everybody else pays. And I know they're talking about what they're going to do with the money, but I just think the cost is too great. So,
Sir, we're hitting on the
I know, I'm right at the end.
Thank you.
The only other thing I have is that I would ask that if there is anything we can do as far as, talking to the Pennsylvania Gaming Board Control Board, then I think we should be responsible enough to do that. I wouldn't look just at the numbers. I would tap off of people's experiences, and you'll have plenty of people that have experiences with the negative side of this. So thanks for letting me.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Anyone else in the room? Center County? Okay. Going online, anybody Center County that has anything new?
No hands, sir.
Okay, great. Anybody else? Anybody else? Not College Township, not Center Region, not Center County? Yes, sir.
I missed my opportunity. I was Harris.
Oh, you're just late in it. You're still welcome.
And this won't take long.
Thank you,
I
sir.
agree with a bunch of other people. My name is Jonathan Eckert from Harris Township.
Thank you, sir.
The only thing I need to add is, I don't know how many have been in a brick and mortar gambling facility versus the little letter, whatever places you were talking about earlier. It's a different ballgame. It is a different ballgame. You go into those places and people get sucked. So earlier there was some alluding to the fact that the online stuff exists, other venues exist. This is similar. It's not similar. It's different. So please write that letter.
Very good. Thank you, sir. I see a hand online.
Yes, Alice Pope.
Ms. Pope?
Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak this evening. My name is Alice Pope, and I'm not a Pennsylvania resident. I live in Brooklyn, New York, very far from you. But I am a Penn State alumna. I earned 3 degrees from Penn State, and I visit the area very frequently as a function of my volunteer work at the university. Because possibly someone may recognize my name and know that I serve on the Board of Trustees at Penn State, I just need to say that I'm speaking as an individual here and not in any way in my role as a trustee or on behalf of the Board of Trustees. My opinions are based on my lifelong career as a university faculty member in the field of psychology, and I'm deeply concerned about current and future Penn State students in regard to this project. Other speakers have done a wonderful job of laying out the many risks that are in front of college students who are tempted by gambling. And I would just like to add the part about academic failure that is inherent in addictions, mental health problems, drug and alcohol problems. Unfortunately, the students who are most at risk of not completing their degrees are the ones who are likely to suffer the worst costs of these problems should they become addicted to gambling. They won't have parents who can bail them out financially. They won't have the resources to get treatment. And while it's a wonderful idea on paper that resources are provided for treatment, isn't the horse kind of out of the barn at that point? It's hard to recover from an addiction, any kind of addiction. And the principles of psychology that guided my research and teaching my entire career show that the best way to address problems is to prevent them in the first place. And so I ask you to consider that this is not just another business. The human toll here, the costs, are very real. And it's hard for me to understand how the community, the Penn State community, the surrounding communities, how this project is in the best interests of these communities. And so, as a Penn State alumna who has benefited so much from this university and from the surrounding areas, a person who's deeply concerned about current and future students, I ask you to please contact the Pennsylvania Gaming Control Board and ask them to deny this license. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Pope. Anyone else? Yes, ma'am.
Do you want to bring the,
Yeah, can we bring the microphone
to her?
Oh, I'm okay.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
My name is Pam Steckler, and I live in Ferguson Township. I too am an alum of Penn State, and I've lived here since 1972. I've been in Ferguson since 1980. So I've been here for a long time and I care very much about our whole area, the center region. I'm kind of heartbroken listening to so many eloquent people speak about this, and they feel as strongly as I do that this is going to have negative impacts. I'm sorry that you missed the boat on saying no at the very beginning, but I think you need to try to do anything you possibly can at this point to stop it. I just see a great deal of damage down the road if you don't. So please write that letter at least and try to get this stopped. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Steckler. Going once. Yes, ma'am. You will be our last speaker. We're going to close this up at 10 o'clock.
I missed the boat as well. So my name is Kristen Bakumini from College Township.
Thank you.
Going last, right here. But I just wanted to, it seems like the last action step is, of course, our request to see if you can write a letter to the PA Gaming Commission. And I know just in my research and working with the opposition, the only time they ever really denied a license, at least here, is with Gettysburg, and really was due to the historical significance of the city. And so when you mentioned earlier, I think it was you, Paul Tikak, about like a due cause, or maybe it was you, Rich, a significant cause for preventing the casino to come here, I'm trying to think about what that significant cause would be. There's been a lot of statements about the university, and as much as I personally can be here representing other families who live here with young children, and I can't even imagine the casino being a little more than a mile from Spring Creek Elementary School, that maybe the most significant reason would be the university. It is a huge Big Ten university. It is the main state university here, and so as you put this letter together, as you know, with whether it's worth the legal risk or not, and sometimes maybe those lawsuits are worth it because they create change in policy, that you think of what could be such a significant reason, and we provided you with many to include in a letter of such significance that it would persuade the PA Gaming Commission to deny the license to them. So, you know, I have all these, of course, statistics. A lot of people have spoken about the detriment to the area. I know you've done a lot of research, maybe you've come across this, but I thought it was interesting, and this was through the 48 contiguous states done by a professor at the University of North Dakota from 2003 to 2012. So it's a little bit from a while ago, and they looked at short-term and long-term benefits. There was minimal economic benefit, and this is looking, again, through all the impacts of casinos. The long-term benefit even disappeared after controlling for spatial and neighboring county correlation effects. The job growth was very minimal, 0.67 percentage points, and again, that was after controlling for spatial neighboring county correlation effects. And it didn't take into account the, despite very well documented and in-depth studies on the, of course, increase in problem and pathological gambling behaviors that becomes bereft in the town. And I know a lot of people have already spoken to students and the influence of addiction, especially when coupled with alcoholism, but also to the individual, the family, and of course social and economic problems that can occur with increase in crime, and that decreased with distance. But when I think about this casino and the proximity to neighborhoods and this elementary school, it's very close when you're talking about a mile or two, and the increase in crime, and the effect on even the stores that are surrounding where the casino would be. Of course, an increase in bankruptcy rates, all this stuff, as you know, leads to divorce and broken homes, which I don't want to see here. I think of this place, as many have mentioned, as this happy valley. This is a very safe place to be overall, and so You know, with young kids, I can't help thinking it's like putting a bowl of M&Ms in front of a child and expecting them to just sit there. You know, this is intentionally bringing a destructive business to this area. And the economic benefit it may be short-term, but it's very small. And the long-term benefit just disappears economically after 10 years. And the harm to society, of course, is long-term and irreversible. So I know a lot of these statements have been made, and I guess the most practical one is what is really the big cause that would be a significance to explain in this letter to the PA Game Commission in order to stop it. And I don't know if they would care so much about my children's elementary school, but I think they would take more heart to thinking about a lot of the statements that have been made here with students. It's a huge university, and that significance and proximity being so close, just within a few miles to that population. That's all I have to say. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Okay, we appreciate, once again, we appreciate all of you taking time out of your evenings to spend with us. Welcome to our world. Long meetings are no stranger to us. But at this point, I think was there anything new based on the... We'd actually close it, Ms. Bouchard, but what do you got? You're muted.
I thank you very much, and I have listened carefully, and I just wanted to note that there was not one person that showed up here that was in favor of the casino. To me, what I've heard everybody say is, we want you to do the right thing, and this is what we think is the right thing, so find out a legal way to do it. And that's how I think this meeting has gone, and thank you very much. I can't imagine the responsibility you guys have to, now figure out what to do about this. Thank you very much. This was a great meeting.
Thank you, Ms. Bouchard. Okay, so again, going back, we've heard a lot. Is there anything based on that influences comment? We'll start with the FAQ and then we'll go with or timeline. I didn't hear anything on the timeline. I'll throw that out. I didn't hear any modifications needed for the timeline. But for the FAQ, was there anything that we heard in our public comments that we feel should be included in the FAQ? And we'll just go with the same order. Eric, anything?
Well, yes. I would say, though, that Paul's list is a lot longer than mine, and he may have...
I was taking detailed notes. This is not a list, rest assured.
He may be, some of the things I may say will be covered by his list, so...
That happens all the time with this council.
All right.
So.
Well, and not all of these are FAQs, but I'm interested in the point of getting some clarification on actual property tax relief. That may be something that could morph into an FAQ if that data is out there. That was a concern that came up from several folks. So if there's data out there regarding, in the broader sense, where the revenue stream goes, not the 2%, not the 1% the College Township gets, but what I heard was the other pieces of it, if there's any data. I'm not sure there is, but if there is, that might be helpful. Certainly there was questions and concerns and more than just curiosity there. And if related to that, I got three things. This would be the second part of the first thing. What other options are there from the state besides that? We know that we have options and the county has options. Or maybe the county doesn't have options, and maybe that's useful information.
That's a problem.
The piece that goes to the county, what options, if any, do they have? Because I think that might help answer some questions. I'm liking the idea of the independent impact report. more so than I did at the beginning of the meeting. I understand what Adam said, but I'd like to hear from other council members on if they have any interest in supporting that. And then lastly, the revenue distribution. I made that note, but I don't remember exactly what that was.
The revenue.
Revenue distribution.
Doesn't that relate to your first point?
Yeah, maybe those were both the same points.
So to that point, I made a note on the revenue.
That's what I had that I thought
Yep.
might fit into FAQs.
Right, was, a look at how revenue comparatively Pennsylvania, again, we're saying Pennsylvania is the most regulated state. What's that look like?
Sure.
And everything. And then.
Yeah, I'll go with that.
And then on top of that, the pieces outside of us.
Yes.
How are those,
The other 99%.
Right, and, our piece, and I can only speak as myself. If this were approved, my order of use of those funds is to ensure or mitigate negative impacts, if there are any. Tax relief, and then, projects towards the good of the community. So, but it's so premature to even have that discussion, that I'm not comfortable even having it.
Now I remember why I had that down here.
Okay, I'm glad I could help.
I heard a request that if this were to go through, that we should consider distributing some of the revenue outside of College Township.
Okay.
The reason I wrote that down is, and this would be less of an FAQ and more of an internal investigation, are there any other examples out there where folks have successfully redistributed either part of the other 99% more locally, or the 1% beyond the borders of the municipality?
Sure.
Because I think that's what the speaker was hinting at.
Correct.
So I guess not necessarily an FAQ, but more an investigative thing, if there are any examples of that out there, and, what, did they experience any
Yeah,
success?
that could go in our impact study review potentially and everything. And the other point of that, there's a whole other player that really hasn't talked too much about any of this, and that's the county. And if this went into Benner or this went into College, you'd have, the county's a player in both, and everything, so that, that's a consideration. But, so, you got it? Okay. Dustin, anything to add?
Yeah, so I'm trying to put myself in perspective of the audience here and what they want to probably get answered tonight. And I have a couple questions. One, is council in support of the casino still? Right? I think that question's been answered. Is council writing the letter that's been requested? And will council conduct an impact study? I think we owe it to the folks here to answer those questions tonight. If we can't answer them, then we need to tell them when we're going to give them an answer. That's it.
Okay. Well, I think the impact study, Eric threw that out, Paul threw that out. I've talked around it. I think Paul's comment on the letter is that I think is completely appropriate. We need our solicitor to weigh in on this.
I think so, because if we reopen a can of worms, we may, and I know that's certainly the wrong way to phrase this. We have a fiduciary responsibility to our township and the residents to make sure that we're not inviting legal action against ourselves in order to do this. If we do, we need to know that that's what we're doing when we do it. So that's where I would like to get the opinion of our solicitor before we act.
Yeah, we need to be informed.
Yeah, we need to know whether that is an eventuality of it. And then the second part was the thing about the impact study was what would be the potential benefits? Would that then tie back into a potential letter like the last speaker was talking about, is that what the kind of thing that they would put on a par with Gettysburg's petition or
Sure.
letter. That's, so to me, they're related, but I don't know that we do one potentially without the other. That was my perspective, and I'm sorry if I jumped ahead.
No, perfect. That was,
No, yeah, I think, you know, if we're writing a letter in opposition, obviously, I think the impact study would, you know, if we had that data would help.
And what is the timeline? That's the other thing here
Yeah.
too, because October 19th is a hearing pending any petition to intervene, which does appear to be the case. And what is the Commonwealth Court's docket relative to this as well? And that actually, during the comments, that occurred to me as another thing we may want to at least keep an eye on for the FAQ, is if there are any updates from Commonwealth Court or the docket that we could put on there.
absolutely.
Or a link to it. That occurred
absolutely.
to me during the course of
Absolutely.
our.
Yeah, but I mean, they set their own schedule, so.
Right, but if there is any news.
Right.
We
Or
should
a
at least.
correlation to the gaming board's decision or timeline. Yeah, absolutely.
Any
Absolutely.
updates, that's
Absolutely.
to Mike's
Yeah,
point
and I
about it
think
being a
that was
living document.
staff's intent, absolute intent. Carla, are you still with us?
I'm here.
Hi.
Hi, yeah, I'm with you guys and tracking, I appreciate too where this conversation is going. One of the things that stood out to me was something that I regret to say I hadn't come across. Perhaps it was in some of the letters, but it didn't stand out to me at the time. And it would be something that I would like to follow up on as far as factual wise, and it would have been something that I would have thought would have been in an impact study on a casino, was the statistic of 20% of young people of college student age, was that from the National Academy of Sciences, being,
It's Dorothy.
being at risk of getting gambling addiction. That's just a number that's concerning to me. I'm repeating it so that we can follow up on that. I'm not one to take a statistic spoken aloud and hang my hat on it, but I would imagine, we could pull that out fairly easily. So I will continue to listen, and I'll keep my camera on. Thanks.
Thanks, Carla. Paul, anything in addition to what?
No, I mean, categories of things that might go into an impact study were obviously the crime statistics, labor impact. I really like the distribution, the economic distribution idea in seeing that. And I would like to, if we can, just get some more background on the successful letter or intervention that Gettysburg, I wasn't even familiar that there was even a precedent for doing that. If we could perhaps just as an email or something, send it around to us or maybe provide.
The circumstances involved.
Yeah, the
There's very different
circumstances, a little bit of the
circumstances,
history.
but yeah.
Just a quick synopsis
Yep.
to just understand, because I was not aware of that prior to our conversation or to a public comment tonight.
Right.
But that's it for me,
Right.
thank you.
In, Shippensburg, the process that was used in Shippensburg is very relative because of, university, I didn't want to downsize Shippensburg, but a smaller university.
A great.
But it's still a
institute
great
of higher
university.
education.
I have some very good friends that are Shippensburg grads, so. Okay, so I think staff's got a lot on there, but the two big is, the impact study, based on that window, is that a reality?
That's what I was
Let me speak for the manager. No, but elements of it.
Yeah, I think that there are some elements that we can reasonably complete in a reasonable time frame. That said, The one thing we certainly can do, and what I've heard here discussed, is with respect to potential legal ramifications, we can have that discussion, we can have that information, that can be done fairly quickly. So from that standpoint, that is information that the council will have in a relatively short time frame, whether it's 1 week, 2 weeks, that's about the outer extent. As far as study, I think that there would likely need to be some cherry picking done in terms of what specifically we feel that we're going to be able to complete in a time frame that would have or still give us the ability to have any kind of impact. Because otherwise, this is potentially a weeks and weeks long effort. And that's, I don't know that there are weeks and weeks, enough weeks and weeks before us in order to satisfactorily delve in terms of the type of study that otherwise might be done. So I think staff will need to get together, we'll have to have some discussions. I think what we can do is identify, based on the conversations here tonight, the comments received, a list of items that we believe that we can make some headway on in a relatively quick fashion. We can certainly have that conversation again with council, whether it's in 2 weeks or less. But I think it is unrealistic to expect, if you will, a full-blown impact study from staff addressing these issues. I think that we're certainly capable and certainly willing to address as many of these as we possibly can, but I do think that there are some realistic limitations to that.
Right, and the only other thing I would offer is, to inform the discussion of a letter or not a letter, all that, that's obviously important. But even if the license is denied, the license is denied.
Absolutely.
If the license is approved, that impact study, I think, is still, I think we would put a lot more meat to that and to try to anticipate if there are going to be issues. And the analogy that by having the discussion, you're saying that that this is a reality, I don't think is fair. I think it's our job to be proactively, over-prepared.
I think that there's short-term and long-term, and I would agree. I mean, I think that should a license be awarded, that we're going to want and need to have answers to these questions regardless, which is
Yes.
to your point.
Yes.
But in this interim period here, I do think that there are some things that we might be able to answer relatively quickly that are part and parcel of that broader scope.
Good. Okay, we've put a lot on staff's plate. I realize that. It's not like nothing else is going on in the township either. So we appreciate the diligence that's going to be required, but obviously this is an important matter. So,
Understood.
Any final thoughts from council? Very good. Again, we thank you all.
Excuse me, the audience has offered major benchmarking facts that I think you should take advantage of and not lay it on your staff and lay your final decision on the a lack of time and effort that your staff can gather information. It's all there in front of you, and the true cost is not worth whatever revenue you're able to pull in from something that could
Ma'am,
very easily destroy this community.
can you mute? Ma'am, you're out of order. Thank you.
Yes, and you may very well.
Thank you. To those that have respected the process and council this evening, thank you very much. as all of your emails and everything else, they have not gone on deaf ears. This is the heavy weight that.
And staff does have access to all that.
Yes, my point was, yes, staff has the access, the same as council has the access, and will certainly utilize whatever assets are available to it. So, with that,
Including
5 minutes.
5-minute recess, very good, thank you. We're gonna recess for 5 minutes and then rejoin our previously scheduled agenda. evening. We'll circle back to reports, manager's update.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. A couple of items, progress reports. Obviously, work continues on Pike Street. We have retaining walls and portions of the sidewalk poured on the south side of Pike Street. We did have fortunately, what turned out to be a minor gas leak.
That was today or yesterday?
Yesterday. That was yesterday.
That's what the closure was for?
Yes, and I think the closure lasted about a half an hour total.
It wasn't long.
Yeah, if that.
But that was, well, what do I want to say? That was a discrepancy in the marking. We believe it was a discrepancy in the markings versus the actual location of the line, which was unfortunate, but the other obviously fortunate part of it was that it was addressed very quickly. All the surrounding buildings were examined, and no problems resulted. So onward and upward with respect to that construction. We did have a meeting of the review committee for the Dale Summit area plan for specifically the RFQ that we had let with respect to form-based code. We have made a determination, or the committee has made a recommendation that they're going to interview all three of the applicants, or the respondents that we received. And so more information on that is forthcoming. Although we did have some confusion that was caused by me yesterday with respect to the next LTAC meeting, I believe I have corrected that, number one, but I wanted to report that we're anticipating a meeting of the LTAC committee on 9/28. That'll actually be what is referred to in the flow chart that has been identified and approved by LTAC for use in this investigation in the Oak Ridge Shamrock area neighborhood. That is going to be an open house. It's a presentation of the neighborhood's consensus to the balance of the neighborhood for comments and feedback. So that is moving forward as well. We did just receive yesterday the final signature copies of the Thompson Woods Preserve intermunicipal cooperation agreement from State College Borough. So that is anticipated to be on the next council meeting for your final review and approval. You had already seen it once before it went to the borough, so this should be for approval. And
Any changes, or they signed it?
no, they signed it as is. So there were no additional changes, no modifications that were made. Pardon me? Must have been a very full agenda. They must have been talking about short-term. They must have been talking about short-term rentals, perhaps. And the last item that I have here is Path to Campus. Mike was successful in securing all of the necessary support letters from the property owners that are along the proposed route, which we were notified was a condition of continuing forward in the grant process. So kudos to Mike for the efforts that he made in that regard. I think we have everything in hand at this point so that the review for that grant can continue to move forward. That's everything that I have. There are a couple of items that are attached that are either incoming correspondence. The solar power purchasing agreement is one of those things. There's also some other communications that relate to outgoing correspondence. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to try to address those.
Questions for the manager? Sir.
Two quick ones. Should we read anything into the Historical Society wanting to sit and discuss before they provide their letter?
No, I did have a good discussion with the Historical Society Board, very productive. They had a lot of good questions. I think coming out of that, the conclusion of that discussion was they support the concept. They want to be a partner in the design should this move forward. They think there's an opportunity there that this project can work with the property, how it both looks aesthetically and how the property functions. So all in all, great discussion with that board. I was happy to attend it, happy to have that discussion, and I look forward to having them as a partner for the successful grantee.
So Mike's new nickname is the closer, right?
Okay.
Need a deal closed?
Yeah.
Give it to Mike.
Mike?
Hey, quick one, I guess, as somebody who is on Pike Street, are we feeling pretty good about that project finishing before the snow flies? Is it just me, or does it seem like there's a whole lot of work to be done?
Right now, the schedule is still to have all the paving done by the end of October. A few of the sidewalks on the north side will be done in November.
So the concrete is fine, that can happen?
Yeah, you can use thermal blankets to cover it up, whereas with the
We
paving.
feel pretty good that they'll get far enough before the asphalt plants close.
Well, I mean,
It just, I'm a novice at this, I'm just looking at all the holes
Well,
in the digging, and I'm thinking.
if you look at the first two intersections, that was where all the stormwater work was, so it just took months down there at Dale Street. I mean, it was some big inlets, it took a while. Now, if you've looked at over the last week, they're starting to roll.
All right,
But
feeling better?
we'll put on our brave face and say, yes, it'll be done.
Well, just also as a point of reference, Hall Baker has kept one plant open.
What was the
Hall Baker has kept one asphalt plant open for extended periods.
Generally, they'll work right up to the Wednesday before Thanksgiving, and then you lose Thanksgiving, and the next week's the first week of rifle season,
Right.
so you lose everybody.
There's other reasons that they take off, yeah.
Okay, feeling better.
Mr.
That's it.
Bernier, you're not the only one that has asked that question.
Yes,
Yes, I get that question every day from,
from a certain individual. Any other questions for the manager? Okay, COG, Regional, County, and Liaison Reports. Dustin, anything? Carla, anything?
No, thank you.
Excellent. Eric?
I'll let you speak to the Ocean State ribbon cutting we went to on Saturday.
Okay.
Adam already talked about Monday. Just earlier today, we had our land use and community.
Lucy.
Yeah, given that it's 10:30 already, I'll follow up with
Thank
a
you.
written. And then, just a heads up, facilities meeting for next Tuesday has already been canceled.
Okay. Paul, anything?
Unless we want to discuss the CTIDA, that would be the only thing that
Yes.
I would bring to the table.
Right, no, that's good. You want to lead, or?
So, I mean, we received the resignation letter. You know, Adam, I don't know if you want to comment on any other correspondence that we may not have been copied on, but I assume that we are still planning to meet as scheduled. I don't know, this is a question regarding the committees. Do we have, can we constitute committees, or do we have to rejigger those prior to the next scheduled meeting?
Real quick, the bylaws for the IDA actually identify a total of 8 total authority members, which is a little unusual. It's usually an odd number. But the current bylaws identify 8. With Allison's departure, that leaves us with 7. In my opinion, there's not an immediate need to fill that currently available 8th position for the IDA. I believe that with a little bit of reshuffling, that I think we can properly constitute the committees. That's something I need to look at a little bit more in depth. But there is not a sense of urgency, and in fact, knowing that the governance committee, which is formerly known as the formerly known as the Operations Task Force, is now the Governance Committee. Knowing that the Governance Committee is looking at the bylaws right now as part of their monthly committee meetings, and expecting that there may be some changes forthcoming, I would certainly recommend that at this point, and this is without having spoken to any members of the IDA, So I have no idea whether or not they would be in agreement with what I'm about to say, but I would forestall making an appointment to the IDA at this time. I would just wait. It may become clear within the next month, 2 months, that it's something that we need to do right away. Bylaw changes may or may not be forthcoming in a timely fashion. If that's the case, the composition of the committees may dictate that we need to have an additional member sooner rather than later. But at this juncture, I don't believe the council needs to actively search for a replacement.
My only other question, thank you, that's good news. Is Lamb going to just step in as vice chair to be acting chair?
I've received some indication. It appears that Mr. Hood will in fact likely be nominated to step into that role. Mr. Hood is presently the vice chair.
Right.
Of the IDA, and so I do kind of expect that that's going to happen. The next regular meeting of the IDA is not until the 3rd week of September. However, there is a special meeting that is going to be held on September 7th, and that is a meeting with the IDA and the CBICC in an attempt to work out a few differences and to identify some problems that need to be addressed, and actually find some common ground, which is there. It just needs to be rediscovered and repackaged.
May I ask what time that meeting is?
Yeah, that is a 9:30 meeting. So Wednesday, the 7th at 9:30 is the IDA special meeting. And Paul, my apologies if you did not
I think I
receive
probably was
that.
copied on it.
That's
It's just, yeah.
But
okay.
we have a rough, at the moment, we have a rough working agenda, which I hope to finalize tomorrow with all parties. I think we're good to go at that meeting. Whether or not on the 7th, they will make a move to name a new chair. I would suspect that that would be the case, but.
Is it here?
It will be here.
I apologize. Thank you.
No, that's great. I would just echo the support for the manager's recommendation for more reasons than just that. I think we need to hold, wait for some of their government committee work to move through. Just for our reference, our administrative services or executive director services contract is the end of September, correct? So that needs to be on their radar as well, so that then it can be on our radar on whether we want to continue on with that.
Right. I think that the way that worked the last time is there was a request from the IDA to College Township to continue that, and I think it would work appropriately in the same fashion.
Okay.
That's
Anything
all
else?
I had.
Okay, excellent. I sent out, the Parks Governance did meet. I created a draft document, sent it to all of you. If you have any thoughts on that, I welcome them. I will share that one of the first items at our next meeting will be discussion about facilitator, and the timing is important because we got to get if we're going to do that, we got to get the money in the budget. So we'll see where the committee goes on that. I think we have the majority in place, but we are striving for unanimous, but I just not sure if we can achieve it. But
Set a high bar.
yeah. So that's it. The only other thing I would offer, just the Finance Committee review, 2023 budget review sessions are scheduled for September 29th, October 6th, October 11th, and if needed, October 13th. All meetings are 8:30 a.m. to no later than 11:30.
Did you say October 5th or 6th?
6th. We moved from the 5th because that's Yom Kippur.
Okay, because originally
Correct,
Okay.
correct. We moved it because of Yom Kippur.
Were they going to be in the COG, were they going to be in the general forum room?
They will be in the general forum room, and they will be on CNET.
Okay, because that just, today, we just tentatively plan to move our joint land use and community infrastructure meeting, the joint meeting with Center Region Planning Agency, from the 6th to the 5th, and the question was a conflict, potential conflict with the Finance Committee.
Yeah, no,
And
we
that's,
already moved ours.
Okay.
Yep. Okay, final diversity, equity, and inclusion. As always, we invite the public to share anything that they might want to report or make us aware of. Does anybody on council have anything for that topic, or staff? Okay, very good. Oh, go ahead.
If I may retrace my steps back to the manager's update very quickly. Significant event, we did hire a new administrative communications specialist. That individual is in a position that was previously occupied by Linda Verdorn, our longtime receptionist. The position was reorganized. Very happy to report that Michelle Spade is the new employee there. If you've not had an opportunity to stop by and meet Michelle, please do. I think you'll be very pleased. She's an excellent addition to College Township, and more importantly to me, she is Mike's direct report. So that actually helps quite a bit. Actually, no, Michelle is going to be able to bring to bear some skills that she has in assisting with a lot of our communications efforts, whether that's newsletters or social media. So we're very excited to have her on board.
Wonderful.
Sorry, I forgot.
No,
She's the name on Mike's email I didn't recognize.
That's correct.
Okay.
And was there a mention about the grand opening that somebody wanted to say something about?
I said I would
You would
defer to
defer.
Rich.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So I didn't go too far because Mr. Bernier, Mr. Takak, and I attended the opening of Ocean State Job Lot, which is located in the former Giant location. It was officiated by the mayor of State College, so it was an excellent event. We were there for moral support, but very impressed talking with the CEO of Ocean State and how they're going to do business and everything, and they stressed a desire to do good in the community, which is always welcome. So.
The CEO gave the borough staff kudos for the work they did with them leading up to the opening.
Awesome.
So, okay, new business, MB1 manager.
Yes, actually, Mr. Long has prepared the finance update for this quarter. That is in your packet. He also provided a brief presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have on the finance report as provided. Very quickly, I'm going to touch on a couple of relevant items that Bob was pointing out in his presentation, rather than go through all of that. Please note that as of November 4th, we're anticipating a draft College Township budget to be delivered to council. And by November 17th, we are expecting and anticipating adopting a proposed budget. And then final adoption of the budget for 2023 will be on December 15th. So sometime between November 4th and November 17th would be our budget workshop, our traditional budget workshop session. So please bear that in mind. In terms of property tax collections, we are doing very well. We mailed out about $2.8 million worth of tax bills. We have received $2,733,000 worth of taxes. We only have $51,000 more to collect at face value. That's about 2.1%. Last year was even less. We only had 1.8% outstanding. Those are excellent numbers, and so we certainly have no problems with actual property tax collections going forward. As far as a couple of items, we're well ahead, about $51,000 better than at this point, which is the end of July, from last year in our property transfer tax receipts. And we're up about $11,000 in local services tax receipts, although we're about $30,000 behind in our EIT collections, which is an interesting staging of those last two numbers. So, but because some of the EIT is paid quarterly, we may catch up very quickly on that. None of those are negatives at this point, but I did want to go ahead and make you aware of that. That's really the most salient items that Bob had put together in his presentation. But if there are any questions, please let me know. I'll either try to answer them this evening or take them back and get answers working with Bob.
Great. Questions on the finance report? Okay. Bob always is available to any of us at any time, so, that's a great resource to have. Staff informatives, anything that staff has to inform us upon?
Yeah, the item that was, I think it may have been, and Jen's not here, and I may be incorrect. If it was not in the original posting of the packet, it was in supplemental. Staff informative number 1, which is and relates to the State College Area Connector Planning and Environmental Linkage Study. I did want to underscore that on Wednesday, September 7th, from 6 to 8, is another, at the Wyndham Garden, is another elected official specific opportunity to review the progress to date on the Pell study. So I did want to make sure that was brought to everybody's attention and that you were aware of that.
Do you need RSVP?
That's a good point.
You could still attend if you don't RSVP. They just won't have a name tag prepared for you.
Thank you, Harry.
And just since we're on the subject, I'll be attending, obviously, so nobody needs to feel obligated to attend. But what's going to happen is we're transitioning from the Pell to preliminary engineering and design. So what they're going to share with us is the recommendations coming out of the Pell. In other words, they started off with several alternatives in 2 different corridors, and they've now narrowed them down to just a couple that they're going to advance into preliminary engineering and design, and guaranteed at least one of those passes through a portion of College Township. At least one of the corridors that they will be advancing into preliminary engineering and design will touch College Township.
Okay,
Good, that was
very
everything.
good. Council staff, other matters. Council, anything from you? Okay,
I will miss the next meeting. I'll be
Okay.
traveling, and I can't, Zoom's not an option for me.
okay. Anything else from council? If not, staff has one item.
I have one item. I received information this week from Government Affairs at Penn State University. The State College Borough Manager and myself have been invited to participate in a conversation with Penn State Athletics and Governmental Affairs with respect to the proposed sale of beer or of alcohol at Beaver Stadium. That is set as a Zoom call for this coming Wednesday at 8 o'clock in the morning. I have my own ideas about that, but obviously I would like to share concerns of College Township council members relative or either support concerns your thoughts with the individuals that'll be on this call. So I would like to pick your brain for a moment this evening, if at all possible, to get some reactions or to get some direction from you on that particular matter.
Okay.
You want to pick our brains at 11 o'clock at night?
It's only 10 of, but
Can we share individual with you before
that,
that?
I mean, that would be fine. I defer. I mean, if it's a conversation that you would like to have individually or by email, send me your thoughts. That's fine. I will.
What's the timeline?
Well, it's short. I'm gonna need them by Tuesday of next week, and that's over the Labor Day weekend.
I mean, at the end of the day, they can do this regardless of what if we stop.
Understood.
No,
I mean,
I'm
yeah,
asking.
Yes,
I'm asking.
they're, just for clarity, Beaver Stadium is located in its entirety in College Township. That said, Beaver Stadium, Penn State University already has an event license through Pennsylvania Liquor Control Board that has absolutely nothing to do with any liquor license process that College Township has on its books. It's handled entirely separately than the typical intermunicipal, intramunicipal transfers, anything like that. So it already exists. It's already been used whenever the concert was held at Beaver Stadium several years ago. And that is the only time, other than the expansion of Beaver Stadium, when the suites were installed, okay, there is the ability for the suites and suites alone to have alcohol in them.
And the Mountain Inn Club.
And, thank you, and the Mountain Inn Club. Beyond that, there is no alcohol at Beaver Stadium. And the only other time that alcohol was sold, if you will, retail, so to speak, to them en masse was at the concert. And again, it was all done and handled under the event license that is held by the university.
Carla, I see your hand.
Yeah, thanks. Since I'm sick and tired and I have no filter time, I could just go ahead and offer that I think it's a terrible idea if you needed a start. I don't have any reasoning behind it. I just, yeah, I just don't think it's a good idea.
Thank you. Any other unfiltered 11 o'clock comments?
Well, are we going to try to reach consensus tonight? Is that what we're going to do?
I don't even know if it's necessary to reach consensus. I want to go, I understand from an email chain that the State College Borough Manager has had conversations with the Student Affairs, Director of Student Affairs, and some other individuals at the university. I have had no conversations with anyone and was unaware that this was even being planned until 2 days ago. So I have my own thoughts on this. For example, just to throw it out there, if in fact there were going to be beer sales at Beaver Stadium, then I think that they should do something on the other end to begin to limit some of the timing that the parking lots are open.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up. Or if we're going to go down that road, I'll offer my thoughts along. I'm sorry, were you done?
Oh, no, that was just a balloon.
I gave this some thought when it first came out, and then when we knew we were going to talk about it, I called some experts, some people who spend their time up there dealing with this, related to me. And interestingly, we shared the same thing. The problem, as we see it, is not during the game, and I'm not sure that selling alcohol during the game is going to have much effect at all on that. There is a problem outside the stadium prior to the game with the gigantic parties and alcohol abuse. So if there is any leverage or opportunity for some horse trading here, I'd be very interested in seeing if any of the previous tactics that they used could be expanded or implemented For example, they ban drinking during halftime. One of the observations from the officers that I talked to was you see a mass exodus from the parking lot back downtown once the game starts, which has had a significant impact on the out-of-control parties that go on, that used to go on indefinitely in the grass lots. And I saw a couple years ago they instituted family-friendly parking areas for those folks, because let's face it, this is not a family-friendly event anymore. If you're trucking through the parking lot from the grass lot with school-age children, this is not family-friendly. So if there was an opportunity maybe to institute or expand on those would be my thoughts. Bottom line, I don't know that selling alcohol during the game is going to have any impact, make anything any worse than it already is. People have found creative ways to get alcohol in the game. They're drinking in there already. They want to sell it, doesn't bother me. The real problem starts 8 hours before kickoff in the parking lot. And if we have the ability to do some horse trading with them, anything they could do to mitigate those impacts, which I think are far more directly impact College Township than anything that goes on inside the game, inside the stadium during the game.
No, very good comments. Very good comments.
I don't expect people to agree with me, but
No.
didn't expect it to be a popular opinion either, but.
No, I mean, my first reaction was, why would we want to expand opportunities for drinking up there? I mean, it's kind of, once you get to the stadium, it's actually, it is more family friendly inside, if you can get there. I mean, as long as it isn't an evening game, let's just put it that way, because they've had plenty of hours to get warmed up ahead of time. I mean, you know, I also am a season ticket holder, or was, at the Pagula Ice Arena, and that's also an alcohol-free venue, and it's great. I mean, you know, if we could somehow make it more like that, I understand there isn't the pregame stuff that happens there. Yeah, but if there's an opportunity to mitigate some of the other issues that are already going, I'd be very much in favor of that.
Okay. That's a start. It's hard because we also don't have the details.
And that's the thing. I'm not sure if they're going to be asking for our opinions or they're going to be telling us what they're thinking at this point. So I just wanted to be prepared going in.
Sure.
Having a little bit is better than having nothing, and I appreciate everyone's comment.
Right.
Did Carla have another comment?
Nope, she was very succinct.
Okay, very good. All right, thank you.
Any other matters? I think I ran out of ink this time. If not.
So moved.
You're out. I'll accept Mr. Bernier's motion to adjourn, and I will second. We are adjourned. Thank you so much.